In the world today, there is an agenda well underway which is purposely subverting and transforming the family unit, creating sexual confusion and normalizing gender dysphoria while promoting and celebrating mental illness. As will be shown, this gender-bending agenda has existed covertly for decades and in fact centuries, but recently, due to its successes, is now becoming more overt, obvious, and ostentatious, to the point that celebrities such as Charlize Theron are openly, physically and pharmaceutically transgendering their children as young as 7 years old. All over North America, drag queens are setting up library story hours to passively push transgenderism on children, and through new school cyberbullying initiatives, LGBTQs, with their army of outrage and pronouns, are becoming part of elementary curriculums.
Welcome to Queer Kid Stuff. I'm Lindsay and this is my best friend Teddy. Today we're talking about the T in LGBT. We all are part of one big family. Gaming's happy. Queer Kid Stuff. You are enough here at Queer Kid Stuff. Welcome to the final part of our 4-part series breaking down the letters in LGBT. You ready, Teddy?
Ready.
Okay. Today we are talking about the 4th letter, T. T stands for trans or transgender. There's something a bit weird about how doctors assign gender to babies. That's because there aren't only boys and girls, and because not all people identify with their assigned gender.
Oh, so the doctors are wrong sometimes?
Yes, Teddy. Sometimes doctors don't assign the right genders. When a person does not identify with the gender they're assigned when they're born, they are trans or transgender. People who are trans can be boys or girls or people too.
And I can always ask someone their pronoun, just like you taught me.
That's right, Teddy. There's also another word you should know. It's the word cisgender. Someone who is cisgender does identify with the gender they're assigned.
Okay, so since you are assigned girl and you use she, then you are cisgender.
That is exactly right, Teddy.
I think I can see your beard. I see.
You can see my beard? Oh no!
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
What's your name?
Miko.
Miko? I'm Isabella. What's your name?
Kristen.
Kristen? Nice to meet you. I'm Isabella. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Are you nervous?
Yes.
How come? Do I look scary? Do you know what I am? No? I'm a drag queen. Have you ever heard of a drag queen before? No? Everybody should try drag at least once. It's really fun.
Even kids?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few kids that are starting to do drag.
It's 2018. There's gonna be drag kids in the world. And I'm one of them.
I think that anyone can do what they want in life. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If you want to be a drag queen and your parents don't let you, you need new parents. If you want to be a drag queen and your friends don't let you, you need new friends.
It's a dream she's had for as long as she can remember.
What happens in the Good Fairy Dream?
So when I was 2 years old, I went up to my mom and asked her, when is the good fairy gonna come with her magic wand and change my penis into a vagina?
You were 2.
Yeah.
For the now 18-year-old Jazz Jennings, that dream is about to become a reality.
There's my stretcher.
She's about to undergo her gender confirmation surgery.
I would say this is the final step of transitioning.
A procedure that, in her case, essentially refashions male genitalia into the female equivalent.
Thank you. This is really the last thing that will validate my identity as a woman. There's nothing else after this. I just get to be myself, be in the body that I've always wanted.
With adolescence looming, Jazz, along with her parents, decided to use blockers to medically pause male puberty.
They block any facial hair I might get or armpit hair, maybe like just so I don't look like a boy, or even getting a deep voice also.
The peritoneum, I say it's going to be like a patchwork vagina, a Franken vagina.
As Jazz makes her way into that life-changing surgery, she hopes that if successful, it'll pave the way for the next generation of trans girls.
Look at I Am Jazz. I Am Jazz is celebrated as a hero in America. They started out as an 11-year-old or 10-year-old transgender boy. She has a national TV show on TLC talking about her journey becoming into a woman. And now she's only 16 years old and just had the surgery to cut off her penis, her perfectly healthy penis, and turn it into a vagina. And the surgery was televised, it was celebrated, and she even had a birthday party saying bye-bye penis and welcoming her vagina on her TV show that's targeted to youths and teens who watch this and of course get influenced by it.
Speech.
I just wanted to thank you all for coming to this farewell penis party. You know, for 17 and a half years, I've lived with this body part that I have not wanted. And even though I've grown to love my penis for what it is, I'm happy to say goodbye.
Now, recently there was a story that came out from a gender non-binary person, and he says, I was America's first non-binary person, and it was all a sham. And he says that 4 years ago, he wrote about his decision to live as a woman in the New York Times, writing that he had wanted to live authentically as the woman that I've always been. And he had effectively traded my white privilege to become one of America's most hated sub-minorities. So he first was a man, then he came out in public, decided that he's a woman, went through the process of becoming a woman, and then 2 years ago, he realized, well, actually, maybe I'm not a woman. Maybe I'm non-binary. I'm a non-binary person, neither man nor woman. So still having this hole in him, he decided he's a gender non-binary person and lived his life as that. And now he realized after much needed soul searching and therapy that he is a man and he wants to live as the man that he was actually born to be. Now, this is a story that did not get much mainstream media attention, of course, because they want to push stories like this by the wayside. But this should tell you that he realized it was all a sham, that he had been pushed by the media to become transgender or become a woman and then become a gender non-binary person, when really he just needed more therapy and more soul searching and more growing into adulthood to realize that he was actually a man. He has a penis, he was born with a penis, and he wants to be and live like a man. And he goes on to say just how much he regrets his transition surgeries. And there are many people all over America that also regret their transition surgeries. And there is actually a website called sexchangeregret.com. You should look it up. And I also talk about this a lot in my book, where about 70 to 80% of transgenders who, when they just are naturally led to grow into adulthood, they will naturally come to love, embrace, and accept the gender, the sex that they were born with.
One of the dire consequences of the cultural norming of transgenderism is the treatment of children who express confusion about their biological sex. At younger and younger ages, they are being encouraged to take part in what are called transition-affirming treatments that may be emotionally and physically damaging, and in some cases, irreversible. The evidence suggests that advocates of such treatments are more committed to a politically correct agenda than to science, or what is ultimately good for children. Medical treatments often used to treat children with gender dysphoria have not been proven safe. Serious questions remain, including whether such treatments may cause obesity and testicular cancer in males, and decreased bone and muscle growth and infertility in both sexes. No rigorous scientific studies exist to show the long-term physical or psychological effects of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormone treatments on normally developing children. None. The rush by the media, cultural elites, and politically correct medical organizations to normalize and embrace transgenderism has no time for fact-finding. So much for science, and so much for having the best interest of children at heart. After passing through puberty, the majority of young children who originally expressed distress and confusion about their biological sex outgrew it. We're talking 75 to 95% of such children. But with the widespread push to embrace and affirm transgenderism, perhaps it shouldn't be surprising that more children are questioning their gender. In the United Kingdom, for example, a government-affiliated health service dealing in gender identity issues for those under the age of 18 experienced a 2,000% increase in patient referrals since 2009. For children under the age of 6, the referrals have increased by over 400%. Despite what you often hear, scientific evidence shows people are not born trapped in the body of the wrong sex. If transgenderism were biological, then studies of identical twins should prove that. But instead, they showed just the opposite. In a 2013 study of transgender twins, the largest of its kind, only 28% of the time did both identical twins, who contain 100% of the same DNA and are exposed to the same prenatal hormones, identify as transgender. That means that over 70% of the time, what contributed to one of the twins deciding they were the opposite sex of what they were born had nothing to do with biology.
Essentially, transgender ideology holds that people can be born into the wrong body. It's simply not true. We can demonstrate this by looking at twin studies. No one is born in the wrong body. So to take that lie and essentially indoctrinate all of our children from preschool forward with that lie, we are destroying their ability for reality testing. Okay, so this is cognitive and psychological abuse. I want to say just a little more about that. And the reason it's destroys the reality testing is because although children age 3, preschool age, most can correctly identify as I am a boy or I am a girl, most children will not understand that a boy grows into a man and stays a man, or that a girl grows into a woman and stays a woman. If they see a man get into a dress and put on makeup, many 7-year-olds may believe he just became a woman. And the other side is not being honest. They're not acknowledging that. And this happened most recently in Rocklin, California. It was the end of the kindergarten school year, and the kindergarten teacher called the whole class together. This was at the behest of the boys' parents, and had the whole class sit down, and she read them 2 gender, I will call them gender-bending stories. One was The Red Crayon, in which you have a crayon that's actually blue wrapped in red paper. So that primes the kids to think, oh, what's on the outside doesn't have to match the inside. The next story the teacher read was I Am Jazz, which is about a boy whose parents helped him impersonate a girl from the age of 3. He now has his own television program. He's 17, but looks like a girl from the waist up. And following those 2 stories, I'll call him Joey, left the classroom, presumably to use the bathroom, and then came back into the classroom in a dress. And the teacher said, boys and girls, Joey is actually a girl just like Jazz. From now on, we need to call her Josephine. Again, I'm making the names up. But this was very confusing to the other children in kindergarten. And it terrified one girl in particular. She was home with her mother, had just bathed, got out of the tub, mom wraps her up, little girl goes by the mirror, her hair was slicked back. She burst into tears. Mommy, am I turning into a boy? I don't want to turn into a boy. Joey turned into a girl. Am I going to turn into a boy? Now, I know this because the mother called me. Again, as the president of the College of Pediatricians, I've been outspoken, so parents reach out to me. And this mother is being told that she is the one who's crazy. Her daughter is the one who is having a problematic reaction. This is insane. Okay, so transgender ideology, yes, it's child abuse because we are gaslighting our children, number one, and that's all children. And in gaslighting these children, many of them, now that they're thoroughly confused, will think that they really are the opposite sex, and they will be sent down a medical pathway. They will be, as they approach puberty, they'll be put on puberty blockers. And then from puberty blockers, they will be put on cross-sex hormones. That combination will permanently sterilize most, if not all, of those children, and also puts them at risk for heart disease, diabetes, various cancers. Girls now, if they have been on testosterone, which is their sex change hormone, if they've been on testosterone for a full year, by age 16, they can get a double mastectomy. So yes, pubertal castration, okay, so gaslighting, pubertal castration, and surgical mutilation, that's child abuse. It's institutionalized child abuse. To make matters worse, you must realize that prior to transgender ideology, these children were treated either with watchful waiting, because for many kids, it may be a passing phase. For many children, the girls may just be tomboys. So either watchful waiting or family and individual therapy. With those approaches, up to the vast majority, 75% to 95% of kids would accept their biological sex by young adulthood, late adolescence. So yes, this is child abuse.
Dale O'Leary in The Transgender Agenda, Forcing Us to Lie, wrote, "Sex is biologically determined. Gender is socially constructed and does not have to correspond to sex. There are two sexes, male and female, but an unlimited number of genders. Once identity is divorced from reality, chaos ensues. Fantasy rules. The Obama administration is determined to force everyone to accept the demands of transgender activists. Girls would have to pretend that they are comfortable with a boy who wants to be a girl using the girls' locker room, because if the girls complain or show any sign of disapproval, they will be judged guilty of transphobic discrimination. Everyone would have to accept that wanting to be the other sex or believing that one can become the other sex is just normal diversity, when in fact it is a symptom of disordered thinking. Even if a person doesn't believe that people can change their sex, he would have to pretend they do and call what is obviously a male a woman. The media has accepted this demand, using feminine pronouns for Bruce Jenner, who, in spite of all the makeup, surgery, clothes, and fancy photographs, is still a male. Transgendered persons point to the psychological suffering they endure because people don't accept them. Their suffering is real. They are engaged in a comprehensive denial of reality. Such a denial is hard to sustain, as they must continually shut out the truth. The transgendered delight in passing, being accepted as the opposite sex in public. It hurts to be told that, even if they can pass, they are not and can never truly be the other sex.
I mean, it's the very definition of trauma-based mind control. You dip the children in a sewer of sexual perversion and violence and all of that until they disassociate from their identity. And that's precisely what we see in the trans agenda. They say, don't identify with your body, don't identify with who you are, disassociate from your identity. And that's precisely what the SRA and MK Ultra victims say, that they're traumatized to the point that they disassociate or even leave their body because the trauma is so intense. And then these other entities enter them. And then they have these multiples, what they call multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder. And then they bring forth these types of role models to teach these people who are now confused and traumatized and full of these other entities, these multiples, to teach them to yield their bodies to them. Yield your bodies to the spirit possession. It doesn't matter if you were Bruce, if something inside you, if you have a Caitlin inside you, what you do is you yield your body to the possession. You allow that entity to possess you now, and you become it. So we see things like this. Oh, well, I was Caitlin inside, so now I'm going to self-mutilate, I'm going to castrate myself, I'm going to do all of these things, and I'm going to surrender my body to the service of this thing inside me, which I have been told I must identify as. And for some reason, and it's just so sad because these young, naive, brainwashed, generation of humans, they buy into it, hook, line, and sinker. Absolutely. They say, okay, I will disassociate from my own identity and I'll start going around telling everybody, well, I identify as, whatever.
The claim by the activist physicians on the other side is that when a child persistently and consistently insists that he, I'll use for ease of example, that he is really a girl, really, well then that's it. That's how you diagnose born transgender. And that is proof that they have the brain of the opposite sex in their body. And we have studies that have found changes, differences between adult transgender brains and the brains of their biological peers who are not transgender. Okay, so let's unpack that. Number one, the definition of a delusion is a fixed false belief. So if I persistently, consistently insist that I am Margaret Thatcher, or persistently, consistently insist that I am a cat, or a person, I'm an amputee trapped in a normal body, I am delusional. And in fact, there are people who believe they are amputees trapped in a normal body. They are appropriately diagnosed as having body identity integrity disorder. Mouthful, but you get my drift. So if you want to cut off an arm or a leg, you're mentally ill. But if you want to cut off healthy breasts and genitals, oh, then you're transgender and you don't have a mental illness. So that's a completely unscientific, but that's no diagnosis. If a brain were somehow the wrong sex due to factors before birth, every single identical twin would have the same gender identity all the time, but they don't. Why? Identical twins have identical DNA. So if it were in the genes and solely in the genetic, the DNA solely there, then 100% of the time they would both be transgender or both be non-transgender. The best twin study we have shows that the vast majority do not match. If you have one identical twin who's transgender, 72% of the time, the other twin is normal. That tells us that it's post-birth effects that primarily impact your identity. Post-birth effects, not pre-birth.
And most of the time, when people identify as transgender, it turns out that there was a sexual abuse history when they were a child, or depression, and they just haven't worked through those issues yet. And the solution is therapy. The solution is soul searching, is not to just put them on cross-sex hormones and start the process of them transitioning. I really fear for what our future is going to be when these very confused children are now adults and leading our country. And that is why, my friends, I am very scared about this transgender, gender non-binary movement. I don't think that it's natural. It's very anti-God. It is anti-biology. And it's destructive to our future. It is destructive to our communities and to our countries on a micro level and on a macro level.
Brendan O'Neill wrote, "There's one more seriously dark element to the promotion of the trans kids phenomenon. It's being pushed by adult trans activists as a way of pursuing their own interests and agenda. More and more trans campaigners are using trans kids effectively as a moral shield, hoping that if they can convince the world that transgenderism is something that emerges as early as 3 or 4, then it must be natural, good, healthy, and thus should be insulated from criticism. That is, they're effectively experimenting on children, both socially and medically, both through filling kids' heads with nonsense about dysphoria and offering them drugs, in order to advance their own adult demands for greater recognition. This is repulsive, the creation of a new generation of castrados who are paraded and praised in public by self-serving trans activists who only want more political clout and respect. Stop it. Let kids be kids. A boy who plays with dolls is not trans or dysphoric. He's just a boy who plays with dolls."
I receive emails from concerned parents throughout the nation asking me to review health curricula, and it has now become transphobic to teach middle school students that women have ovaries and men have testes. That's transphobic. Biology is reality, not bigotry. We're at a point now in which we know, we have documented 6,500, at least 6,500 genetic differences between men and women. Men and women cannot be treated the same in medicine. Because of these genetic differences, women are more prone to autoimmune diseases, for example, than men are. We must approach our patients in accordance with their biology, not in accordance with their perceptions, which are delusional. No surgery will change the DNA, which is imprinted in every single cell of the body. Again, this is both, it's a combination of reason and science. They meld, they go together. Human sexuality is binary. Okay, we know this because in nature, reproduction is the rule. And human beings, we engage in sexual reproduction. You need a man and a woman to do that. So chromosomes, women are XX. Those are the sex chromosomes. Women have two X's. Men have an X and a Y. Those are genetic markers. They're genetic markers for female and male, respectively. Okay, binary. That's the rule, and it's self-evident. Exceptions to the rule, biological exceptions to the rule, do not invalidate the rule. And by that, I am referring to intersex conditions. We live in an imperfect world. We live in a world with disease and disorder. There are a variety of very rare biological genetic disorders that result in disorders of sex development. These individuals have a true physiological, genetic, biological problem. So it may be appropriate within those cases, they may need surgery, they may need hormones, but that's a case-by-case basis. And they are the exception, not the rule. Why do we refer to them colloquially as intersex? Because they are between the norms. And many people with intersex conditions, they can lead very happy, healthy lives, but their treatment is very personalized. Transgender, someone who identifies as transgender, however, that's not a problem in their body. Gender identity, all identities, they're in our thoughts. Thoughts and feelings, those are not hardwired, they develop, and they may be factually wrong or factually correct. Individuals with disorders of sex development are being used as pawns in the fight for basically a civil right to a mental illness. There's no such thing as a civil right to a mental illness, but that is in fact what we are dealing with the transgender rights movement.
It is impossible to be born with a full set of male and female genitalia. You are either born with an XY chromosome, a penis and testicles which produce sperm, or else you are born with an XX chromosome, a vagina and ovaries which receive sperm. No one in history has ever or could ever be born with both. It is physically impossible to spatially fit a penis, testicles, vagina, and ovaries all in the same body. You were either born a male with male chromosomes and a male anatomy, or you were born a female with female chromosomes and a female anatomy. And it doesn't matter what you feel like. If you feel that you are a man, but you were born female with female chromosomes and a female anatomy, then your biology is correct and your feelings are wrong. If you feel that you are a woman, but you were born male with male chromosomes and a male anatomy, then again your biology is correct and your feelings are irrelevant and wrong when it comes to the truth of your biological sex.
A staggering 41% of people who identify as transgenders have reported that they have attempted suicide, which is over 25 times the rate of suicide attempts among the general population. So many doctors and studies have confirmed that when people often identify as a transgender, they almost always have one or more at least coexisting conditions like anxiety, depression, or bipolar. And then when we as a culture, in the media, in schools, when we're reading children's books about transgenders and having TV shows about talking about transgenders, we're encouraging children to try on a different gender or cross-dress. We're literally enabling this mental disorder. We're literally enabling this mass confusion in children.
Like here, you can go on here and see Charlize Theron, and she says she adopted this young black boy, and now she's making him dress like a girl and telling everybody she has 2 daughters now. You can go, here's the interviews, click on it. She talks about her 2 daughters, and there's tons of pictures of her dressing him up like a girl. She's transgendering him. She says that he identifies as a girl. So here this white woman adopts these young black children and starts humiliating this little black boy. Where are the Black Lives Matter people on this? In my opinion, this is child abuse. And we see it with tons of celebrities. Here's Pink, big shocker, right? I mean, she's so feminine. Pink is raising her daughter gender neutral. Daughter? Just look at the picture. I'll leave it to you. Both of them. It's just so sad that they do this to their children and publicly. And again, I'm so tired of being gaslighted just for reporting what we see with our own eyes. When we say that they're transitioning their children and they're changing the gender of their children, they're doing it openly. It's like on the cover of magazines. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This was a little girl. This was one of her twins. And starting when she was just a toddler, they started dressing her like a boy and transitioning her into a boy in the public eye. And there's no doubt that that's child abuse. These children haven't even gone through puberty yet. They don't have their hormones. They don't know. They can't make decisions. I mean, in fact, we won't even let a human get a driver's license until they're 16. They can't make those kind of decisions. They can't even buy a beer till they're 21. We don't think they're responsible enough to make those type of decisions, but they're telling us that these children are capable of making decisions for the rest of their life at 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old. My son, between the ages of 4 and 6, he thought he was a robot. So I didn't go and start cutting body parts off and putting machine parts on him and be like, he identifies as a robot. I'm just being a good mom. No, they'd have locked me up because it's insanity. But yet these people are saying it's not insanity. Now my son pretends to be a dinosaur all the time. That's his thing. But I would never say, well, my son identifies as a dinosaur. That's who he's going to be for the rest of his life. And even when it just comes to sexuality, when I was in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I thought boys had cooties. All little kids are like that. Thank God my parents didn't say, oh, well, look, she's gay. We're going to start transitioning her. I never would have had a life. I never would have had my son if they would have robbed me of my identity just because when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, I thought boys had cooties. So this goes beyond bad parenting. This is child abuse. They're robbing these children of their human rights. This is just so sad, and it's not the choice of the child, it's the choice of the parent. They've made this transgender thing so hipster, right? So trendy. You're like the cool celebrities. You're fitting in with all this transgender stuff. And so this little child's being toted around like a Gucci purse. She's like, look at my transgender child. Well, this is not a Gucci purse. This is a little boy. This is a human being. Have we lost all touch with reality? This is an emergency. This is 911. Do you know the suicide rates of transgenders are like 40 to 50%? Suicide attempts, and in some countries, successful suicide rates are above 40%.
For this reason alone, I would think psychiatrists would want to talk people out of transitioning. 46% of trans men and 42% of trans women attempted suicide. This is from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the Williams Institute. And in India, 31% of transgender people die from suicide.
Michelle Cretella is the president of the American College of Pediatricians. She just wrote a piece in which she says, we're quoting now, transgender ideology has infiltrated my field and produced large-scale child abuse. Cretella says doctors are encouraging parents to have their kids change genders when there's no evidence these changes are safe or even helpful. Dr. Cretella joins us now.
Thank you very much, Tucker. I'm glad to be here. I think it's important to say that everyone on both sides of this issue is concerned about finding loving and healthful solutions for all children. Right. Yeah. Honestly, we at the American College of Pediatricians, and also I have many colleagues on the left, also insist that those solutions be rooted in reality, and transgender ideology is not. Sex is hardwired from before birth, and it cannot change. And that's why we've actually called this child abuse, because by feeding children and families these lies, children are having their normal psychological development interrupted. They're being put on the puberty blockers, which essentially castrates them chemically, followed by surgical mutilation later on. This is child abuse. It's not health care.
It's MK Ultra is what it is. It's MK Ultra for the masses. And I'm sure some people were probably shocked to hear a doctor say that sex is hardwired because they've, been brainwashed for so long by this cult. But she is speaking medically. That's the truth. They've blurred the lines of logic so much that they've confused gender with sexual attraction. And those are two completely different things. It shouldn't be confusing at all. It's really very simple. If you have same-sex attractions, that doesn't change your gender. People lust after lots of things. People desire lots of things, but that doesn't change anybody's gender. Peanut butter is not a gender. If you lust after money, you're not a dollar bill. It doesn't change your gender if you're a male or female. If you have same-sex attractions, that's sexual attraction. That doesn't change your X and Y chromosome. It does not change your biology. It does not change your genitalia. It does not change anything scientific, biological, or genetic about you. Sexual attraction is a completely different thing. There are pedophiles who are sexually attracted to little babies. That has nothing to do with gender. There are men and women who have same-sex attractions to adults. That has nothing to do with gender. But see, they've blurred it all. They've lumped it all into this LGBTQ, LMNOP type thing. And that's why it's so dangerous. because then these pseudo-psychiatrists, instead of discouraging people from destructive behavior, are encouraging this self-mutilation and destructive behavior. And then these people follow the advice of the cult and they end up transgendered and suicidal because there was no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. They're still tormented souls, only now they're disillusioned and even more hopeless. And the official suicide rates reflect that. This is real. I'm not speaking from a religious perspective. I'm speaking from a scientific perspective. Those suicide rates are real. These people are being psychologically harmed by being encouraged into self-destructive behaviors.
I recently received the following letter from a longtime subscriber. I want to share my story about what I went through as a closeted transgender, how I discovered that I was merely suffering from a reversible condition, emasculation, gender confusion, gender dysphoria, and most importantly, how I did so. For years I identified as a female despite obviously being in a male body. I was discriminated against and messed with for it, called hermaphrodite, freak, etc. People felt entitled to knowing my business, gawked at me excessively. It was a living hell, a nightmare on repeat, from which I knew I had no escape. I've never been attracted to men, but I knew I was female after a certain age. In fact, other people seemed to figure it out via facetious and sometimes even malicious commentary before I even did. So you see, I was in a unique pickle. Society would have deemed me trans and lesbian. Yikes. When I heard an author I greatly respect, Eric Dubay, say, "There are only two genders, period," I was really bummed and I tried to talk to him about it. I said something to the effect of, "I love your work, but how can you say this particular thing as undisputed fact when I am having difficulty finding companies that will work with me and even harassment? So when I say that I fully understand where you guys are coming from, hopefully you know that I mean that with the utmost sincerity. I have lived with that pain. I have lived with that inner dialogue. If my natural wiring that I had no choice in is not accepted by society, how am I supposed to even survive this place? I can't even tell my own family the simple truth of who I am." That being said, I have overcome this. Now ask me how I knew that I was trans, that my sex was not aligned with my gender. I just knew. I felt it. And other experiences I had confirmed it beyond doubt. But what I was feeling was the emasculation that had been caused by my environment since I was a kid, not my God-given chemistry. Stories like mine are not being heard in public schools or on TV. Getting my experience out there, I hope will offer afflicted individuals an idea for something to try. Like, hey, that guy says he reversed his. Maybe others can have similar success and see the bigger picture behind this. There is a reason stories like mine are not heard, and that sites like sexchangeregret.com are never mentioned to kids. Most information on this subject tends to come from the government itself, a source that we all know has been found to be lying on countless occasions. No one disagrees that the government is corrupt. What if you could enforce a restructuring of society to accommodate and even encourage one of the many illnesses it causes? What if you could even begin to punish masculinity at some point? They are already planting the seeds of being able to criminalize misgendering an individual. Why is government so supportive of this movement? Why have they given it the priority they have? Might there be something in it for them rather than for us? Please accept the possibility that these are causes that serve the government's agenda to further depopulate, enslave, and mutilate humanity. That while sympathy for these causes is human and natural, please accept the possibility that you are being lied to and manipulated into supporting an extremely insidious cause with an iron fist.
I even had a man about 27 years old who called me up and was looking for coaching. And he said that he was struggling with insecurities and shyness and social skills and confidence. And I was looking through his history and talking about his past. And then he told me that he had been to a therapist before me and he had only been to one session, and he told her that he had experimented with cross-dressing a couple times in his life. And he had confided to this therapist that he thought maybe, just maybe, there's a possibility that maybe he's a woman since he's failing so much as a man. He wasn't getting any dates, didn't have many friends, etc. So you know what that solution that therapist came up with, that trained therapist that went to medical school? She said, "Great, you're a woman. You're a transgender. Let's start the process of you transitioning into a woman immediately. We're going to start getting you on hormone treatment in the next month." That was her solution. It wasn't to talk to him about his past or his childhood or potential sexual abuse in his childhood. It wasn't to talk about his relationship with his parents or his dad. None of that. None of it. All it was is to immediately start transitioning him into a woman. So when he told me that in the consultation, I said no. I urged him not to go through with these therapy sessions. I urged him not to go through with this cross-sex hormones and transitioning into a woman before he did potentially irreversible damage to his life and to himself. I begged him to please give coaching with me a try before he did something irreversible to his bodies that he would later regret in his entire life. So he decided to give coaching with me a try. And I found out within the first 3 sessions that this was not a man who was really a woman inside. This was not a case of a transgender. What this was a man who just felt like he was failing so much in his skin as a man. He could not attract women. He was so shy. He was so scared of women, and he had such a troubled past in childhood. He had a very absent father figure who was never around in his whole life, and he was raised mostly by a single mom. The single mom who, by the way, was totally on board with him potentially taking hormone therapy and transitioning into a woman. Could you believe that? She was okay with it. But the fact of the matter is that his dad wasn't around. He hardly had a very good father influence. He didn't know how to be a real man. The problem was that he wasn't a woman or transgender. The problem was that he was not succeeding as a man, and he was not confident and comfortable in who he was as a man, in his male identity. And by the way, this was a guy who was 6'5", had the frame of an enormous basketball player, and he was going to start transitioning into a woman. He would make for a pretty disgusting and ugly woman, but he didn't know any better. He was just thinking that he should transition to a woman because that's what society was telling him. You're no good as a man. And the therapist that most people trust was telling him, you're no good as a man. You should just transition into a woman. And they were enabling that. So after a few months of working with me, we got him very comfortable and confident in his role as a man in the world and with women. We got him developing his confidence and leadership skills. We got him developing his boldness, his balls, and his charisma. We had him developing his conversational skills, his social skills, and his attraction skills with women. And by the time a couple months was up, he was so happy and so comfortable and so confident being a man, he could not believe that at one point he even thought that he was potentially a woman trapped in a man's body. He couldn't believe he'd even cross-dressed a few times in his life in private. And the more I worked with him, the more excited he was, the more powerful he was in the world. He ended up getting a raise and a promotion at work. He ended up going on dates with women. And he just was feeling so comfortable and confident in his own skin as a man that he never has looked back. Could you believe if he had just gone through with that transgender therapy? Could you believe if he had continued on with this transition per the expert's request and transitioned into a woman, cut off his perfectly healthy penis, turned it into a vagina, and went through the rest of his life that way? And more disturbingly, if there is one person that I found out who is like that, who confided in me, imagine how many more people all over the world are in that same situation. Imagine how many more men are in America that think, maybe I might be a girl trapped in a boy's body because I'm not very confident as a man, or because I'm growing up with a single mother and not a present father figure who is telling me how much men are terrible, telling me how toxic men are, and basically trying to turn me into a woman and feminize me. Maybe I should be a woman. Maybe I would have more success in life being a woman. Just imagine how much of a difference it would make if we had strong and present father figures in men's life, teaching them how to be a real man, instead of all these boys being raised by feminist single mothers and absent fathers and broken families. I am so against young children being put on cross-sex hormones and gender therapy and transitioning into the opposite sex before they're even old enough to vote or drive. It really is institutionalized child abuse, and I cannot believe it is despicable that therapists, that trained doctors and teachers, people that we're supposed to look up to as experts and professionals, are simply enabling these mental disorders instead of giving them the help and the healing and the therapy that they really need to come into their own skin, to embrace their own body that they were given, their own God-given sex, and to really be confident and comfortable in their male identity that they were given or their female identity. Instead, we're raising a generation of confused, very emotionally disturbed, and mentally ill children into adults.
Okay, before I go into the ones that we believe are deceiving us, the hidden ones, this hidden hand who are doing this, I just want to show you some pictures of openly transgender male and females that in a 2-minute search on anywhere, on YouTube or on Google, anywhere, you can find multiple articles. These are transgendered males and females who are proud of what they've done and they want to show off, you know, their bodies and stuff. So this is not a conspiracy. These are actual transgender males and females. And I want to show this because I think a lot of people are still expecting this. So when they look at these beautiful women or these very attractive men, they're like, there's no way, because they expect, you know, transgenders to still look like the way they did in the royals and the way they did in old times. But we're well beyond that now. Not only do we have all of this plastic surgery where they can alter jawbones, that, you know, nose jobs, everything that all of the Hollywood elite have, whether they're transgendered or not, they all have nose jobs and boob jobs and all kinds of stuff that they didn't have back when the royal families were doing this. So we have this small window of opportunity to see, before all of the technological advances, to see what was going on. But now it's almost impossible to see, because well beyond plastic surgery, now we have all of the hormone treatments, which actually changes your voice. It changes your muscle mass. It changes your hair growth. You know, to grow a beard, it changes everything. Well, not everything, but you know. And then even well beyond that, now they are into altering in the petri dish. During the in vitro process, they are altering gender. So we are well beyond this. Now we have a generation of transgenders that are almost indistinguishable. I mean, some of them completely indistinguishable unless you had access to their medical records. So anyway, let's just take a look at some openly transgendered people so you can get an idea of what's going on today. Now, this is a woman that wasn't transitioned in the petri dish. So you can see how much progress they can make without even messing with a person genetically. I mean, this is another woman. And again, this is not anyone who was altered genetically in the petri dish. This is just from the hormones and plastic surgeries and stuff available to common people. And these aren't multimillionaires and billionaires like the celebrities, and they have access to all of this sort of medical stuff. And this is what I was talking about. See, this is just mainstream. This is just mainstream, you know, magazine stuff for transgenders. This is female to male facial surgery, facial masculinization, to make the female face appear more masculine. To be used in addition to testosterone therapy, the forehead can be lengthened, the cheeks and nose augmented, and most importantly, the jaw reshaped and chin recontoured, which is one thing we see a lot in them. They'll get the chin dimple, they'll get implants, you know, jaw implants and all this. I mean, it's hard to believe, but this is for regular people. This isn't just for the celebrities. So these aren't multi-millionaires. This is what's available. This is the world we live in. So this is the woman over here with the beard. The only reason this picture's here, I mean, lots of people theorize about a lot of men and quote unquote men in Hollywood. I'm not saying that Ryan Gosling is FTM just because he was a Disney kid and came up through this. I don't know. There's no way for me to know. I don't have access to his medical records, but this picture was just juxtaposed against this one to show you that a female can absolutely present just as well as any of these males in Hollywood. So please move forward with us as we discuss this topic, and don't discount it just by looks alone and say there's no way. Well, there is a way. And these are the Hygeras in India. And you can see they look like beautiful women. I mean, this one over here didn't turn out so great, but you know, a lot of them look gorgeous, like beautiful women. Now, I know this is a big red pill to swallow, and I'm sorry to have to give this to you. It's unbelievable, but it's true. I mean, all of these women here are not natural women. These are all men. These are pictures from Miss Tiffany's Universe. It's a Thailand beauty pageant for men who have turned themselves into women. Actually, when you see that group of men from Thailand, it makes our drama queens look masculine. And this is nothing new in Thailand. I remember hearing about this decades ago when I was in the Marine Corps and I was stationed in Japan. And a lot of the guys would take hops over to Thailand if they had like weekend leave and it wasn't long enough to go all the way back to the United States. So they would go to Thailand. And I remember the guys coming back all the time telling these stories. Oh my gosh, she was so beautiful. I thought she was a woman. You know, we were on the beach doing this and her junk fell out of her shorts, down the side of her shorts. I could not believe it. She totally looked like a beautiful woman and all this, that they had these transvestite prostitutes that would always solicit the men, and they were scared to death because they never knew if they were going to be making out with a dude or not. And here they are. This is the Thailand beauty pageant of men. These are all men. So please, I'm only showing this stuff because I want you to understand that I know it's hard to believe that these celebrities and these people that we see and they've presented to us as the beautiful ones, that they could be men. So I just wanted to show you some examples of, these transgenders, and you can't tell a lot of the time. It's just a fact.
When determining the sex of an individual, forensic scientists use upwards of 30+ genetic markers which differentiate biological males from biological females. After a full analysis, even with nothing but the burnt remains of a skeleton, forensic specialists are able to determine biological sex with nearly 100% accuracy. Some male biological markers include, for example, sloping foreheads, eyebrow ridges, strong cheekbones, large square jaws, long wide necks with an Adam's apple, broad shoulders, long straight up and down torso, an Adonis belt, male genitalia, long muscular arms and legs, and large hands and feet, in comparison to female markers, which include more rounded foreheads, no significant eyebrow ridge, softer cheekbones, rounded jawline, shorter petite neck without an Adam's apple, wider hip-to-shoulder ratio, hourglass torso with indentation above the belly button, no Adonis belt, female genitalia, shorter, less muscular arms and legs, and smaller hands and feet.
Now again, this is science. This is reality, not conspiracy theory. If forensic scientists, forensic investigators find a body that all of the flesh and muscle, face, everything is gone, they can still identify whether it is a male or a female body because the bone structure is different. The pelvic region of the female has to be wider because a baby has to pass through there. See, a baby could never be born through this hip. And the bone structure coming down from the back actually goes all the way down in the male, and it's very short in the female. And the tendons and the muscles are attached to this bone structure. So here's a typical example. I mean, these are incredibly fit humans, especially in this, day and age of fast food and GMO food and all of this stuff. But the point is there are differences between a male and a female, no matter what kind of clothes you put on them. And this shows those examples with flesh over the bone structure. So a man will have this right here. It's called the Adonis belt. Okay, you see a woman, no matter how skinny she gets, the actual muscle structure and how the tendons attached to the bones are different. So a male will have this Adonis belt structure, and the navel will be above the indentation of the waist. But you can see, so there's the indentation of the waist, and the navel will be above the Adonis belt. And on a female, if they're extremely thin and fit, you know, then you can see it well, that the curve will go in right below the rib cage, and the navel will be below the waist. Navel below the waist, navel above the Adonis belt. Another would be the Adam's apple. Males have an Adam's apple and females do not. So that's usually a dead giveaway. Back when I was coming up, it was so rare, but when I lived out in California and you'd go over to the west side, you'd know who the tranny hookers were because they had Adam's apples. So, you know, the elitists, they have lots of plastic surgery and stuff like that. So you don't see it all that often. For example, here are a couple of pictures from plastic surgeons' websites for advertisements about this transgender surgeries that they do. And you can see here, the Adam's apple here, they shave it down. They actually go in and shave it down. Now, that does grow back. The cartilage and everything does grow back. So you will see that in the celebrities over the years in between surgeries. And here's another one that just shows the extent they will go to. They literally grind down their bones and shave down, sand down the bones underneath the skin, because the brow ridge in a male is very pronounced and a female is more flat, like the sloping. And you can see here where that's been taken down. They've taken it down to feminize the face. They also round off these jawbones because men have very angular jawbones and women have more of a sloping, rounded style jawbone, typically speaking. And men, as they age, you know, really fill in. If you look at a young boy, they have a very skinny face. And as they turn into a man and then through middle age and an older man, you'll see their faces really square out. They continue to fill out. So yeah, one of the plastic surgery things is to go in, actually shave down that jaw to feminize the face. And again, if you pay close attention to how a lot of these stars age, you will see that filling in, squaring of the jaw as they get older. So you won't see it 100% of the time, but in the regular population out in the bars and the clubs in California, you did see it. So this would be an example. Like this looks like a female, right? But the Adam's apple is a dead giveaway. And once the veil's removed from your eyes and you know what you're looking at, you'll see the Adam's apples. You'll see it. You can absolutely see it if you pay attention. Especially if you go all the way back to some of their younger work before they were A-list, and you'll be able to see, like right here, it's pretty pronounced. You can see it there. It's less pronounced. You can, especially when they're laughing and stuff, is usually when you can catch it like that. You can see it's clear. And again, with the male Adonis belt, the love handle, the Adonis belt structure. And you can see she's conscious of it, covering it. And make note of that when you see these types of impromptu pictures, because in all of their studio pictures, to make their bodies whatever they want them to look like. But when they're out in public, you'll notice they do this a lot. It's always hands on the hip, bending to one side so you can't see the boyish straight figure. All of that type of thing. This type of thing, covering the Adonis belt. Now, I'm not going to do a whole bunch of transvestigations in this video. There are tons of people doing that. Just type in transvestigation or transpocalypse now or something like that, and they go person by person. Some of the channels do a great job, others of them don't. So you'll just have to wade through it and look at the evidence. Like you can look at Cameron Diaz here and you can see the Adonis belt. And you can see, again, it's that same old thing that you catch them doing when they're not there in the comfort of their studios with all of the airbrushing and professional photographers and photoshopping. If they get caught vacationing in the oceans around the world or whatever, then you'll see them do this. If there's a camera around there, they know what they're hiding. They know what they're covering up. So, I mean, you'll have to make up your own mind. But when I see the straight up and down and the Adonis belt of the people they're parading in front of us, even with all of the shots that their parents gave them growing up and all of that, you still can't get rid of bone structure. And I know it's hard to believe. I mean, who wants to believe this? But all the makeup in the world doesn't change the fact that there is this structure, this solid sheet of muscle that goes all the way down to the groin, this Adonis belt. There's pink in a bikini. I mean, it's crystal clear. Britney Spears is another one who has a really, really visible Adonis belt. If you know what you're looking for, go back now and watch her different dance routines and stuff when they don't have it camouflaged by higher waisted stuff. And then she has the low riders on and things like that. It's really, really apparent. I mean, look at that. If you just covered it up, it wasn't in a bikini, would you really think that's a female torso?
While it is true that some biological men can have certain feminine features and some biological women may have certain masculine features, all born males will have a majority of biological male markers, and all true-born females a majority of female markers. Having said that, most of us here, myself included, are not forensic specialists, and so for the gender investigations of various celebrities, politicians, and models which are about to follow, please note that myself and the other presenters are not claiming to know 100% the sex of each individual shown. So if you see your favorite celebrity mentioned and cannot believe that they could possibly be a covert transgender, perhaps they are not, but are simply being used to show an undeniable trend in media personalities. For the purposes of this presentation, it is not important to focus on any particular individual, but the overall abundance of evidence which points towards the fact that there has indeed been a long-term, elite, covert gender inversion campaign, which is now becoming overt.
During our sex scene, I felt your dick rubbing into me.
And I said, Mom, I am a rich man.
I'm a tranny. I'm a man.
What would surprise people about Jessica Alba?
I'm a man.
Good evening, godless sodomites.
What is the essence of what you want the world to know about Stephanie?
That I'm really a man.
Stephanie.
That I'm really a man. That
Stephanie.
I'm really a man.
That she loves to cook.
About is suffering for your love of music. And I remember that I don't think I got panties on here.
And as hard as it is to believe, many of our sex symbols, the ones that they have created for us to be sex goddesses, they are men. So I want to show you several examples. First, I want to go through the anatomy because there is actual anatomical differences between men and women that can help you see through the deception. And that's especially sinister. It's one thing to make decisions for yourself, but it's a complete different thing to deceive others. And these people have conspired together to deceive humanity. So let's go through a few of the ways that can help us identify the Decepticons.
The Adam's apple is probably the most readily recognized gender marker of them all and is the enlarged laryngeal tissue of a male. The reason why so many elite transgenders do not have an Adam's apple is because it typically develops after a full male puberty. These elites suppress that puberty by castration, chemical or surgical, and give exogenous estrogen in order to maintain the prepubescent male characteristics that merge with female sex characteristics to create the ultimate in-between. The male jaw is different from the female jaw in a couple extremely apparent ways. The male jaw is far larger than the female jaw, manifesting in the extreme width from the front. From the side, the male jaw is completely square, the bone going straight back from the chin to the back of the mandible, where an almost 90-degree angle forms. In a true female jaw, the bone typically slopes from the chin to the back of the mandible, creating a soft, round profile, and finally rounding up at the back of the mandible. The differences in the shoulders of the sexes can seem subtle because our eyes are not used to really looking for them, but once you start to examine, it will jump at you. Men have broad, square shoulders that after a full male puberty typically fit 3 widths of the head from end to end. Women typically have sloping, slanted shoulders that can fit 2 to 2.5 widths of the head from end to end. The shape is the key because these elite transgenders have not gone through the full male puberty. Brow bossing, or the thickening of the brow ridge above the eye, is a predominantly male trait. It is usually quite noticeable on a post-pubescent male, but the elite transgenders usually only get a slight version of this, and many choose to have a surgery that actually removes this from their faces. It is probably the most dramatic facial feminization surgery that one can have. Do you notice the completely square shoulders? The sloping back forehead is another predominantly male trait that can be seen in prepubescence, but is personified in a fully post-pubescent male. The male forehead typically slopes back from right above the brow ridge, while the female forehead is typically straight up from the nose bridge and starts gradually rounding out in the middle of the forehead. In the elite transgenders, we see the typical male facial structure where the nose bridge dips in and then creates a slight bump at the brow ridge and recedes backwards, starting at the brow ridge. Do you notice the completely square jaw? The male neck is also one of the easiest signs to see when it comes to a transgendered elite. Women tend to have necks that concave in the middle and get wider at the bottom, while men have a large tree trunk-like straight neck. This is a trait where pictures speak 1,000 words. Marilyn Monroe was confirmed to have a chin implant. Female hips are one of the most recognizable and beautiful aspects of a natural woman. Women have wider hips for carrying children, where the navel tends to actually sit below the hip indentation on the torso. Men typically have quite narrow hips with a straight up and down body contour and a navel that sits below the waist indentation. In real females, the shoulders tend to fall in line with the hips. As transvestigations have been produced, another aspect that usually outs an elite transgender is rib removal. The rib removal creates an artificial waist, but at the same time reveals the artificiality of the proportions because the shoulders become far too wide. Cher was rumored to have ribs removed, and her gender was publicly questioned when she began her career. Marilyn Monroe was also rumored to have ribs removed, and you can clearly see the scar in this picture, and also you can clearly see the body frame of a man. These are the before and afters of 2 chin implant surgeries. Notice how dramatically it changes the silhouette of the face, but how subtle the effect really is. Here we have the before and afters of 4 hip implant surgeries. They will never pass as the true hips of a woman, only a false Hollywood-sold fantasy inversion. Here we have another post-pubescent transgendered female. She has had a forehead recontouring, rhinoplasty, chin and jaw recontouring, a lip lift, and an Adam's apple reduction. Again, she looks dramatically more female than she did before, and there are very specific reasons for this. This is the post-pubescent transgendered female from profile. What I want you to notice is that no matter how much jaw contouring you do, you cannot escape the straight back contour from the chin of the male jaw. This one still also has the classical sloping back forehead. As you can see, they could eliminate most of it, but it still remains. When you see a true biological female next to these plastic surgery creations, the stark contrast in facial characteristics just jumps out at you. Are you transvestigating yet? Can you see the differences between the left and the right? Do you need me to put them on the screen?
As we age, our skeletons continue to grow. Specifically in males, that's most noticeable. You'll see their jaw broadening and their chin getting wider, as well as other features. The nose grows more on a male and the ears. But for right now, we're going to look at the jaws of these celebrities then and now. And you'll see a common theme. As they age, they get this broad, wide jaw, which is not a female feature. So you might ask, why is that? Well, let's take a look and see why they all have the same feature in common. And remember, we're just looking at the jaws, how square they are, their broad cheekbones, all male features. So as you can see, Jennifer Grey started out with a small jaw and chin, but it didn't stay that way. Because as she aged, her features kept growing, her bones, because she's a male. And she's not the only one. Why do they all have this feature? Look at that. That's quite a prominent jawbone. You can see the sharp angle by her ear. Her chin looks rounded, but overall, the jaw is square. And you can see this person has a heavy brow ridge between her eyes, right above her nose. You can see that that's a male feature. That's quite a prominent jawbone, isn't it? And her cheeks are quite wide, and she has a square chin. Taken as a whole, those are male features. Once again, you'll see that when she was younger, she had a small jaw, but as she aged, it grew wider and broader. It's just time progressing and bone developing. It's a male characteristic to have that jaw. Once again, when she was younger, she didn't have that big jawbone, but as she aged, it became more prominent. And you can see the hard angles at the corner of her mandible. It's a male feature. I hate making these videos. I feel bad for these people, but I don't know why. They're deceiving us, so I shouldn't have any sympathy. This one didn't age well at all. If we all remember how everyone thought she was so sexy, she's not a she. She's a he. You can slap on titties, throw some hair on her, makeup, but it doesn't change her bones. Again, same jaw. They all look the same, but they don't look like us. I'm cribbing that from somebody else's channel. But it's true. Wonder Woman. I could smack that person. That is not a woman. It's so annoying. Wonder Man, I guess, in a Wonder Bra with some slap-on titties. It's not a woman. I don't even think she has breasts. I think it's just in her costume. Look at her jaw. That's a man. All right. Let me get myself under control here. Whoa, that's a big jaw. That is a huge jaw. They didn't look so bad when she was young, but as she ages, it gets wider and wider and wider. Now you're going to see, well, they don't all look like that. Well, some of them get corrective surgery. It's feminization surgery. It's a big industry. As you can see, this man has a sloping back forehead, male feature. He also has a sharp angle to his jaw. And now he doesn't. He had an implant put in his forehead, or he had his bone shaved. It looks like he had the bone shaved because his brow ridge is not as prominent. And he's got a sloping jaw. And they gave him a nose job. And they made him a female. But he's not really. It's just plastic surgery. Now, if we're talking about Hollywood, where they have access to the best plastic surgeons, would you be able to tell? Well, you can once you get a discerning eye. But at first, it's difficult. So you'll just see these are regular people who are in the public. And, it's not that I have any animosity to these people. They're out in the open. They're not deceiving anyone. They're not pretending to be pregnant, pretending to have menopause, pretending all these things that women go through. They're not doing any of that. So fine, you live your life how you see fit. It's the deception that's the issue. Now see that? They get their Adam's apple shaved, but unfortunately, or fortunately for us, it grows back. So that is an issue for these trans people in Hollywood. Their necks, their Adam's apples growing back. But you can also see he had his chin done and his jawline shaved. This is striking. I mean, really. That's like a guy, really, so obvious. And even though it's not the best job because he did it much older, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And the later in life that you transition, the more prominent your male features are, and the more difficult it is to disguise. But if you saw that person in the street, would you think it was a man or a woman? So if you had unlimited amounts of money and access to the finest plastic surgeons in the world, and you had done this since you were a baby, you had been transitioned, what would the results be? This one's, it's pretty striking. If he had makeup on and hair, he could pass as a female without doubt. And that's just your average tranny. This one's striking. He had his brow ridge shaved. You can see that lump above his eyebrow is gone. He had his jawbone shaved. He had a nose job. It's really pretty passable now. I would really have to examine his whole skeleton to see. Look at this one, because he's very young. So it's easier to transition when you're young. Look at that. That's amazing, right? You would certainly think that's a gorgeous female, but it's not. It's a dude. So you got to be careful not to be fooled by makeup and hair and clothes and tranny poses. These people are trained by professionals of how to stand and, what angles to present. And this next one, that's striking. But what did they have done to feminize the face? The jaw was shaved. That was the big thing. And they did the eyebrow ridge. And then it looks like the nose. Yeah, maybe, I'm not sure. But certainly the jaw. And he got a chin implant, because you can see his chin's pointy. So that's a big thing now. What the heck happened here? What is so drastically different? Her jawbone is shaved. That's what's so different. And she lost some weight. This one, does that look like this one? Oh my goodness. Even before she had the surgery done, with that hair on, it still looked like a dude. And now it just looks like an alien. So, whatever. I'm really not a mean person by nature. The deception is annoying to me. It's an annoyance to think and to know how hard it is to show people this. But that's a dude. That's really a dude. It's not even passable. What did she have done? She had her jawbone shaved, and her brow ridge, which is still prominent, is shaved a little bit. So you see that lump between her eyebrows above her nose? It's still there, but she had it shaved, and she had her jawbone shaved. Now, why is that such a common plastic surgery thing, to get your jawbone shaved? Now, this girl tells everybody she's a tranny. Nobody believes her. They think she's joking. I appreciate her honesty. She makes a gorgeous girl, but she's not a girl. She had her jawbone shaved, as you can see. It's much smaller in the picture on the right. It's just a common thing that these trannies do to try to deceive us. But this one's not a Decepticon. She tells the truth right out in the open. Just no one believes her. I believe her. It's pretty obvious. All right, now what the fuck is what the fuck is going on here? What is going on? What are these women doing with Adam's apples? Look at them all. Is that a female feature from some other part of the world? No, it's not. It's not a female feature. They all have Adam's apples, every single one of them. And, you can get that shaved, but it grows back. So it requires maintenance. I mean, I guess after a while they don't need the money anymore. They don't care. I don't know why, but shoot, come on. That's a big trachea. So the trachea on a man is 40% larger than the trachea on a female. And I could not find a picture of that. But I know it to be so from my anatomy and physiology classes in college. And I'll keep looking. I'm sure I'll find something. But good grief. What the frick? Did she play for the Jets? Look at her neck. Come on. Come on. That's a huge neck. Look at her trachea. My goodness. And there's those straight clavicle bones. Her collarbones just jutting straight out. Whoa! Who knew? Who knew? Look at that neck. Come on. That is a gigantic neck. That neck is massive. It is. Oh, sorry. I'm not starting over. Anyway, that's a big neck. This one, that's a long neck. Look at her jaw. Look at her jaw. Whoa. Okay, so that's pretty obvious. Now, what could you do with just accessories to make yourself appear more feminine? Like, what could you do? Look at this guy, who's not, I didn't transvestigate him. Who the frick knows what he is at this point? He's one or the other, but he's not both, right? So that's just makeup. Professionally done makeup. That's all that is. Okay? So, if you had the best stylist in Hollywood, what could you do? If you had bought tranny accessories to put on your clothes, what could you do? If you had a rib removed, if you had breast implants, what would be possible?
So, can you spot the Illuminati tranny in this crowd? Take your time, look closely. You may see a few. Well, it's a trick question. I'm sorry. These are all trannies. These are all trannies, openly transgendered people. They're not deceiving us. They're openly transgendered. They're not Illuminati trannies. They're just trannies. That's from a tranny beauty pageant. Okay? Now, here, spot the tranny in this photo. They're all trannies, openly transgendered. This is a tranny beauty pageant, okay? They're all openly transgendered again. I just want to show you some real ones, man. The real ones can fool you. That's not me telling you they're trannies. They are trannies. The real ones can fool you. All right? That's the comparison. And there's no difference between these tranny beauty pageants and cabaret shows like this. This is a tranny cabaret show you're looking at right here. There's no difference between this and the Victoria's Secret tranny cabaret show they had on TV, I saw the YouTube video of this event. About 3 million people have watched it in less than a week. 3 million people have no idea that these are a bunch of trannies, man. Spot the tranny there. They're all trannies, all right? Openly transgendered from some beauty pageant, a tranny beauty pageant. Spot the tranny in this one. They're all trannies. This is a tranny cabaret show. They're the same as the Victoria's Secret. Spot the tranny here from Miss International 2013. Spot the tranny. Take a good look. Take your time. This one may be difficult. Look closely. Spot the tranny. Are there any trannies in this photo? I'll give it away. They're all a bunch of trannies. This is from Miss International Queen. Look it up. Miss International Queen is a tranny beauty pageant from trannies all over the world. Those were all a bunch of trannies. And some of you who have been calling me crazy or stupid, those are all a bunch of trannies and they fooled you. Yep, it's just a big old tranny fest at the Victoria's Secret. What's their secret? Their secret is that they're trannies. See, they're basically telling us that Victoria has a secret and no one's figured it out. These are all trannies. Now, when I say all, maybe, just maybe there's an exception in there, but I just can't find it. She's pointing down too. As above, so below. Look at that. All right, so there's another one. Just look at the, I mean, you can see on the face. You can tell in the face and the shoulders. This is not about micro analysis. This is just the overall vibe of seeing a tranny. Now, if you can't see it, I really can't help you. But I do want to expose deception. That's kind of what I'm trying to do with my channel here. Oh, the devil horns. The devil horns have come. No surprise there. But you know what the biggest Illuminati sign is? You know, all these videos, right, on YouTube, so-and-so's Illuminati, you know, they're doing the hand signs, you know, the one eye, the devil horns. Well, being a secret Illuminati tranny is the biggest sign of all of them. Transgendering your body, that's the biggest sign you're in the Illuminati. You know, I don't know what women think about this whole thing, but I guess they want to be sexy like these models, right? And some of them want to be these models. Well, guess what? If you're a real, natural-born female, you will never be a Victoria's Secret model. You will not look like this. It's impossible. I just imagine that many women must have low self-esteem because they compare themselves, their perfect female body, to these freaky Illuminati tranny bodies, and they think, wow, these women on Victoria's Secret, I'm never going to look like that. You know, I'm fat, I'm whatever. You know, it's severe psychological and emotional damage is being done by these people by not coming out of the closet. These people are closet trannies is what they are. And they should come out of the closet, all right? You know how you spot a tranny? Look at the highest paid celebrities. Taylor Swift, Beyonce, all these people, Lady Gaga, the ones winning all the awards, the ones on the covers of magazines, the ones on the internet and every page of the internet. It's full of trannies. 98% of what we see in the mass media is trannies, newscasters, politicians, singers, actors, actresses, whatever. It's all a bunch of trannies, man. It's part of the satanic agenda. It's all part of the transhumanist agenda to destroy the human race.
So I know this is difficult, but please just take a look at some of these queens. I mean, there's a reason why that phrase was coined. They're laughing at us, drag queens. So anyway, just take a look at some of the aristocracy throughout world history with new eyes. Here's Queen Maud of Norway. I'll just show them to you. A picture is worth 1,000 words, if you have eyes to see. And this is Princess Stephanie of Monaco. But let's take a look at a few other pictures of Princess Stephanie. Again, like they taunt us, they mock us, and it's been right in front of our eyes the whole time, hidden in plain sight, like everything else I've discussed on my website, hidden in plain sight. And you can follow it down the lines throughout all of history. So then you go into the Roman Empire, and they were very much into all sorts of sexual perversion. That lots of them were into pedophilia and pederasty, as well as homosexuality. Most of the emperors had young boys, you know what I'm saying, in their courts. And we see that followed down the Roman lines as well into the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, this is an article from last summer. This just happened last summer, where the police neighbors complained about this apartment and the police raided it. And there was a giant drug-fueled homosexual orgy in there amongst the Catholic hierarchy. This is real.
Knowledge of the history of the elite gender inversion is necessary to understand how much is actually understood about this process of prepubescent transgendering by the elite themselves. The earliest form of gender inversion was in the form of eunuchs, and then later the famed castrati, whom were castrated and prepubescent to maintain the flexibility, range, and timbre of their voices. It is documented that the castration had several anomalous effects on the body, such as the bone joints not hardening, causing the limbs of the castrati to grow unusually long, and allowed the ribs to grow out larger than a normal singer's. The true nature of this type of castration is not known because, as demonstrated by the quote on the screen, the elite have kept secrets from us for far longer than we could ever know. In their time, these were the elite. These were the celebrities. So many were being castrated that only the elite of the elite made it to the opera stage, the others being sent to infiltrate the church. As we know, over time the accumulation of knowledge on a specific subject snowballs, and this particular knowledge of anatomical slice and dice has been going on since minimally 400 AD. Alessandro Moreschi was the last surviving, publicly lauded castrato, taking his last breath well into the 20th century. The practice of elite gender inversion, prepubescent transgendering, has always been a secret and has never ceased to exist.
Okay, but I want to start by jumping back to Shakespeare. You know, this is the precursor to Hollywood. During the plays of that era, all of the female roles were played by male actors.
I always feel silly. I guess men do going, as they say, in drag, but the history of theater shows that years ago in Elizabethan times, I guess, all of the women's roles were played by men.
And these males were groomed for this. Now, obviously, these are modern pictures, but I'm going to get to some actual old pictures here pretty soon. But this troupe, or this circle of actors / actresses that traveled around doing these plays, they were trained for this and specialized in this. Their voices were trained, all of it, to pretend to be women. And I know we've all been taught that it was just because of misogyny, right? It's just because everything was patriarchal and all of this type of thing. But that's not the case. It's because this is how that ruling class, the aristocracy, this is how they lived. From ancient times, this is how they lived. It's not a coincidence that all of these celebrities are coming out and coining this phrase, pansexual, like Miley Cyrus. Oh, a new frontier, right? As they're indoctrinating their followers, all going all the way back to Disney, the people that they have gathered to follow them, and then they lead them into the new frontier, pansexual. Because pan is just another name for the Baphomet. Pan is another name for Hasatan, a satyr, Satan. So they're open about it. They're open about training humans to be pansexuals, like Pan. And they're not just using celebrities that we've all known and trusted since childhood to push pansexuality. They've raised up an entire crop of models now for fashion and the new trendy thing. They create the trends. We're the followers. They're the puppeteers. They create the trends, and that trend they are pushing now, which unfortunately has caught up a lot of our naive young people, is the androgyny from their cult practices. So you see, there's tons of new models like this. It's endless. And here's Ruby Rose. You know, they make no secret of it. For ultimate in androgynous inspiration. Inspiration means to be indwelled with a spirit. Inspiration, inspired to do something, means you're anointed to do something. And you can see the Ouroboros around his neck. I know, again, they say she was born a female, but, you know, I think that's up for debate. But the fact remains that they are raising these people up by the multitudes in every profession, and they're placing them in key roles in the most popular TV series, like they just placed her in Orange to Black to get more exposure. You know, then all of the fashion trends in the music industry, they're placing them everywhere. This is sex cult propaganda, open sex cult propaganda. I mean, they say it openly. She schools us on gender fluidity. She's the teacher. This is a figurehead for the cult. She is sent to teach us. He is sent to teach us pansexuality. And who is the god Pan? The goat-headed god Pan? It's the Baphomet. Pansexuality. And break free, that's one of the propaganda pieces to teach people to transition. And if you think it doesn't work, let's look at some of the comments on this video. Ruby helped me come out as pansexual and gender fluid. Her positivity is such an amazing vibe that I cherish. And they're all like, same, same, bisexual, same, samey. So right here's the evidence that propaganda works. They know how to indoctrinate people into a cult. They know how to use MK Ultra on the masses. Pansexual, right there, pansexual. And they've been leading humans down this path since ancient times. But here's just a few that I think are obvious. You know, you be the judge. And notice this on the magazine cover, they always do this. Queen, again with the mocking. Queens, again. Queen, Serena, queen. On the cover of GQ, a man's magazine, as Man of the Year, before the massive breast implants and other cosmetic surgery. Okay, back to the CEOs. Now, when I get to the A-list celebrities here in a minute, and I do like Sarah Silverman and some of these who are, you know, they're always wearing the feminism shirts and they're icons for the feminist movement. It's important to know that not just the corporations, but all of these movements are also headed, anybody above the level of sergeant, you guys. When I get into more detailed pictures and anatomy here in a minute, we'll talk about these Adam's apples and stuff. But for now, I just want to run through these and you be the judge. But if you look through the high society pictures and stuff, you can see that as she has aged, the masculine features come out because the cartilage continues to grow. And plus they have to lay off of the hormone shots and stuff the older they get because of the hormone damage. So when they're young and their skin is supple and everything, it's really hard to tell the difference. But if you watch them age, it completely comes out. And that's why we see all these atrocities of plastic surgery disasters amongst the elite, and especially the Hollywood actresses as they grow old, because they have to, once they can't take those hormone shots without it killing their organs, then they have to do all of these surgeries to compensate, and it's just a disaster. And they still end up where they can't hide it. The Princess of Sweden is a perfect example of that, because when she was a young man, you know, she could pull it off, sort of. But as she aged, I mean, look at this. Come on, you guys. And until everything started coming to light, we just couldn't make sense of it. We're just like, whoa, they didn't age well. But this is why.
Michelle Obama is, in fact, a man who prefers to present himself and who prefers to dress up as a woman. This video will prove that the person commonly referred to as the First Lady of the United States may be the first queen at best, but he most certainly is not a lady. Let's find out why. This video will examine the following. It will examine Michelle's male hands, male shoulders, male torso, male genitalia, and overall male proportions. It will also look at how a carefully designed wardrobe, a wide hairdo, a persistent facially distorting smile, and carefully selected press photos have all succeeded in suppressing the revelation of Michelle's undeniable male physical form. While this information is controversial and shocking to say the least, it is being shared because it is the truth. It is being presented so that people can stop living the lie that is being dished out by the U.S. government and the mainstream media. Many people are unfamiliar with the more subtle physical differences that can be found between men and women. While Michelle Obama works very hard to distort the more obvious differences, he fails miserably at hiding them all. Let's take a close look at some of the male traits that he has failed to conceal. The shoulders are surrounded by bulging muscles that appear to be very masculine. Notice how the carefully tailored clothing hides the neck muscles. Let's find out why. Both the neck muscles and the bulging shoulders look like they belong on a man. In this photo, the hair and the clothing both serve to camouflage the neck muscles. Michelle's face may appear quite feminine to the undiscerning eye, but after taking a closer look, isn't it amazing what the very best makeup artists and hairstylists can do to any person who has enough money? And to help add to the illusion, Michelle often slouches forward. This is done to make the shoulders appear smaller, but the masculine shoulders remain. Wild hair and dangling earrings can pull the eye away from the shoulders, but once you have spotted them, they just don't seem to go away. To make matters worse, men have more prominent brow features than women. As you can see, Michelle's eyebrows are generally painted on in such a way that they wrap around the male skull bone that protrudes out at the eyebrows. Close-up images of the eyebrows reveal a tremendous effort at wrapping the paint all the way around this very prominent male facial feature. Once again, the painted eyebrows do not match the size of the brow bone. Now, what most people do not know about human anatomy is that the body is naturally proportioned based on the ratio between overall body height and the size of a person's head. In this illustration, you can see how perfectly proportioned a typical human body of each gender is. This illustration also reveals a description of how the shoulders are measured. Here we have an example of a healthy woman. As you can clearly see, her shoulders are about 2.5 times the width of her head. A man's shoulders are typically the equivalent of 3 times the width of his head. In this illustration, it is easy to see that this person is in fact a man based on the width of his shoulders in relation to the width of his head. And here we have an image of an extremely athletic man whose gender is confirmed by the width of his shoulders in relation to the width of his head. Now, if we take an objective look at Michelle, we see that the shoulder width is not compatible with the shoulders of a woman in relation to the size of the head. The dress, the pearls, the fancy hairdo, and makeup can redirect the observer's attention away from the proportions, but all the illusions cannot make the physical reality that Michelle is a man go away. Now let's take a closer look at Michelle's body proportions. Notice in this illustration that the height of a typical healthy man is roughly 8 times the height of his head. The height of a typical healthy woman is roughly 7 times the height of her head. This illustration reveals that Michelle stands at 8 heads tall. At this point in human history, there is no amount of surgery that can change his body proportions. His overall height is exactly 8 times the height of his head, proving that Michelle cannot possibly be a woman. The jacket was carefully chosen to diminish the manly appearance of the shoulders. Notice how there is a wide gap at the waist to create an optical illusion that the hips are wider than the shoulders. Michelle is also wearing flat shoes. He does not tend to wear high heels because if he did, while standing at 5 feet 11 inches tall, he would tower over almost all of the women as well as most of the men who are standing nearby. This illustration reveals how the hip and shoulder proportions are naturally different between men and women. While men's hips are smaller than their shoulders, a woman's proportions tend to be the opposite. I am not able to show you an image of Michelle at the beach. However, when Serena Williams appears on a beach walking next to an actual woman, it is quite easy to see the physical differences between the body structure of a man and a woman. Even when a man has breasts that are formed by hormone replacement therapy, the hip bones remain much narrower than the shoulders. It is interesting to note that Serena's thin upper body and heavier lower torso are almost identical to Michelle's. So how then is it possible for Michelle to pose next to a man and appear to have female body proportions? Simply by turning the shoulders away from the camera, the shoulders appear to be narrower. Notice the difference when the shoulders are squared to the camera. In this photo, we can see Michelle turning the shoulders away from the camera. and then simply by bending the wrist while relaxing the biceps, the upper arms appear to be more feminine. But look at what happens when the shoulders are square to the camera and the man arms are plain to see. The wild hair and stacked up jewelry can only do so much to distract you from the uncomfortable truth. The biceps are fully flexed because they are now carefully concealed under a custom-tailored jacket with exaggerated shoulder pads that make the arms appear smaller. It is quite an effective illusion. In order to trick the eye into perceiving the illusion of wider hips, Michelle typically wears dresses that are tight above the upper waist but then flare out at the hips. In this image, we can see why Michelle will most likely avoid a simple V-neck in the future. A square front view reveals the broad shoulders and the neck muscles, but the super wide hairstyle creates the illusion of smaller shoulders, and the stacked up jewelry steers the eye away from those massive neck muscles. But in this image, there is a convincing first impression that these two people are both women. And so how do they present the illusion that they are both female? It is really quite simple. The woman wears a loose shirt and tight pants, while Michelle wears a tight shirt and loose pants. Add a few feminine externals, and there you have your illusion. In this image, it is quite easy to see just how large Michelle's shoulders and neck muscles are, especially when compared with the ones Barack has hidden under his suit jacket with the padded and extended shoulders. You will not find many pictures like this one because when Michelle frowns, the fact that he is a man frowning becomes very plain to see. And when Michelle drops the charade, the feminine false externals drop like a lead balloon. My, what a very feminine and slender neck you have. I wish I had one like that. The manly features often stand out like a sore thumb when the guard is let down and the photo is unexpected. Let's not forget the Adam's apple. What most people don't know is that the appearance of the Adam's apple can be diminished through surgery, but it cannot be fully removed. In this image, you can clearly see Michelle's Adam's apple. Once again, Michelle's Adam's apple is not too difficult to spot. The Adam's apple stands out in this earlier photo as well. Notice the bulging neck muscles and heavy man brows, even on the wedding day. Speaking of the wedding day, you must be wondering what happened to Michelle's male genitalia. There are certain undergarments that some people wear in order to hide their male genitalia. It is similar to a sports cup that men wear while playing contact sports. In this photo, you can see a surprising bulge that appears to be Michelle's special cup. This wardrobe malfunction was revealed by the wind that was blowing against him, revealing the contour of his form. But that's not the only wardrobe malfunction. In this picture, the lighting cast the most unfeminine shadows on Michelle's manhood. This photo begs the question, how could the audience not notice? Poofy dresses and big hair help to maintain the illusion of being a woman. Even the children who accompany Barack and Michelle play a part in the illusion, because who would have suspected that the two girls might have been adopted? Perhaps someone should tell them that similar facial expressions cannot change the genetic evidence. Michelle has a male anatomy. Hormone replacement therapy and surgical treatments cannot change the fact that every cell in Michelle's body is stamped and sealed with male chromosomes. As a woman, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind, as I proclaim it from the rooftops, that Michelle Obama is most certainly not a lady. I am a real woman. I have gone through school and earned a degree in criminal justice. I have learned a lot about people and why they do the things they do. While studying for my degree, I took many classes on forensic psychology. I also studied the basics of forensics and investigative skills. Throughout my travels, I have had many encounters with transgenders and transsexuals, and so with all this background knowledge and experience, it is with great confidence that I now proclaim Michelle Obama has deceived the nations. I have absolutely no doubt that Michelle Obama is in fact a man.
The leaders of this world and their families, they're androgynes, okay? Essentially, as close as they can get. They're trannies, all right? They're transhumanist trannies, transgendered, transsexual, transvestite, whatever word you want to use, man. They're all trying to get androgynous. That's their Garden of Eden. That's their goal. That's their kingdom, okay? That's their holy city. Is an androgynous holy city where everybody's a god. All the power centers of society, from education to the business world, to the government, to mass media, they're all run by people who believe this stuff. And they are practicing this. That's why their children are trannies, their wives are trannies. The men, a lot of the men, I don't know if all of them are or not, but I think a lot of them are trannies as well, okay? They're practicing this. This is their religion. This is the most important aspect of their religion, and very few people are talking about it or even aware of this. It's happened right under our noses, man. They're hiding in plain sight. So many people have caught on by now to the fact that Michelle Obama is a secret tranny, a deceptive transgendered entity deceiving us. So I decided to take a look back at the previous first ladies of the United States to see if we can find a pattern, and I believe we can, okay? And this one's pretty shocking. I don't know if anyone's done this before. We're going to start with the first lady now. We're going to go back, reverse chronological order. Okay, let's take a look at Laura Bush, all right? Laura Bush, look at this person, man. That's a tranny if I've ever seen one. Take a look at the eyes. She's either a serial killer, the most insane person in the world, or she's demonically possessed transgendered entity. Look at this. It's a tranny, man. There's something off of their face. Look at her eyes, all right? Pause the video. Stare at it. Pray first so you don't get possessed. But this is a man. And look at the hands, look at the face, look at the body. Just look at all the little things, but look at the energy coming out of that. Who's the man? Who's the woman? Who's got masculine, aggressive energy? Who's got feminine energy? And it's not what it appears. Look at the couple of trannies right there. All right? Even the daughters, if you look at the children, those are two trannies right there, man. They got the big face. And look at even both those daughters. The big clown mask smile. All these trannies have the big clown smile. Now we got Clinton, right? Hillary. Now Hillary's the toughest one to spot out of all of them, ironically enough. Who's the man? Who's the woman? Who's got the girly face? Who's got the masculine, aggressive, stronger face, okay? There's definitely some masculine energy coming out of Hillary. Most people think she's a lesbian, but by the end of this video, you'll see a clear pattern of first ladies being trannies. Is that a little boy or a little girl playing the saxophone? Answer, that's Bill Clinton. You be the judge. What is that? Yeah, look at the girly face on Bill, man. And that's all these sex scandals and stuff. Good chance they're all just fake to make it look like he's a man, right? What better way to enforce the illusion that this is a man and cover up this whole transgender demonic phenomenon? Doing the Freemason sign, you know. Barbara Bush, George H.W. Bush's so-called wife, one of the most evil families in history, the Bush crime family, demonically possessed. That's Barbara Bush as a young man. Clearly a man face, masculine energy coming out of there. And look at the little femboy on the right, okay? So clearly a man on the left, a tranny, a secret Illuminati tranny. Shocking, isn't it? Okay, so come back later on when you can accept the fact that these are female to male trannies as president. But for now, you should be able to see the women. Nancy Reagan, yes, shocking. So these deceptive entities, not like the celebrities who are going around half naked, they're a different type, right? They have a different purpose. These demonic entities here inhabiting the unclean bodies of these deceptive transgendered entities, they pretend to be these wholesome kind of people, right? All-American, perfect wife, perfect family, Christian. You know, they're all lying. So these are different. There's a different type of lie these people are perpetuating because these are the ruling elite. These people rule the world. These people are in the ruling class, the elite. All right, there's Margaret Thatcher, another tranny. So you could do this for all the countries in the world, I think, and you'd find the similar pattern. Just overall, look at what's going on. Open your eyes, open your mind, open your heart. Brooke Shields, they're hanging out with trannies all the time. It's just a nonstop trans fest. They're all related, the same bloodlines. They're all deceiving us, man. We're being ruled by an elite group of people who are secretly transgendered, and we don't really know why, so we have to put the pieces together this well. And then she's got the Herman Munster look going on at the end there. You know, she became Herman Munster. Yes, I am a secret tranny. Look at it. She just admitted it. Rosalind Carter, Jimmy Carter. I actually met this guy once. Yes, he's very feminine in person, all right? And look at this, a tranny, Rosalind. Okay, Jimmy Carter and his wife, and we'll see the daughter too, Amy. He had more kids than that. Amy was always in the news for some reason. Little boy, it's a little boy. He's got the Opie look going on, the Andy Griffith, you know. But who's more masculine, who's feminine? And look at that. What happened to the faces as they got older? They got to do the plastic surgery. We've seen that phenomenon before, haven't we? The female has to, the female-looking tranny has to keep going. Now they're hanging out with the Pope, you know. Come on. Look at that. They just have to mutilate the face so that you can't even tell what's going on anymore, right? Gerald Ford, Betty Ford, the Betty Ford Clinic. Well, it was probably a gender-bending clinic, because that's probably what it was, all right? Betty Ford, look at that tranny, man. Look at that masculine square face. It's got the square face tranny. It's not really a horse face, is it? It's a square face tranny. The big hair, just a tranny. And this, you got the soft, gentle. And he's tall, sure, yeah, he is taller. But you got the kind of the soft, gentle Gerald Ford kind of guy. It's funny, you know, you don't really, back before the internet, you didn't really see the first ladies on TV that much, right? You didn't really see them. They didn't make many appearances, so we didn't really get a good look at them. President was on TV a lot, and there's, you know, playing hockey. Come on, give me a break. I wouldn't want to get checked by her. All right, Betty Ford, young, you know, again, who's got the masculine energy? Who's got the feminine energy? Look at this little pretty boy when he's young and older, kind of mutilated her face to pretend she's a woman, you know. You know, the big face, again, the square-faced tranny, just a complete hoax. Betty Ford, and this is back in the early 70s. They're all related. Young boy, transgendered as young children, raised, born and bred this way, okay, in Illuminati tranny families. This is generational. This is generational. This is how it's planned to be from day one. Pat Nixon, Richard Nixon, tranny man on the right. They didn't do a very good job with this one, did they? That's not even passable. I mean, that's obvious. It just wouldn't even occur to people. See, it's all in our head, man. We've all been brainwashed. We just have to change our thinking. We can see it with our eyes, but for some people, seeing is not believing. Why can you see it but not believe it? Because it's in your mind, because it scares you, right? It's like, oh, wait, they could never do that. This is just too weird. Well, it is weird. I agree. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But it's real. It's true. And look at, they're always got the little nice little smile. Look at those long tranny arms. And you have to not only open your eyes, but it's really, you have to open your mind. You have to open your mind. And don't trust me. Just look closely. Lady Boy Johnson. But let's focus on Lady Boy Johnson. There she is as a young man. See masculine features. Wow, look what happened later on. Turned into something else and turned into George Soros, didn't she? There you go, George Soros. George Soros look-alike. Who knows what's going on? Princess Jackie Kennedy. You can see clearly there. Pretty muscular-looking little boy, little man. As a young man, who's the man? Who's the woman? Very masculine energy. Got that Egyptian clone look going on. That Egyptian look. And look at how feminine Kennedy is there. You know, little princess on the left. She got that Princess Di charisma thing going on, but still, it's just a man. Look at that tranny man, tranny face. She's got this. She's a square-headed tranny, little square-headed tranny little boy, transgendered from birth. Look at that torso. It's a male body. Male body. Deceptive transgendered entity. This one's got that Princess Diana charisma thing going on. Look at those eyes. Look at the eyes, the eyebrows, the eye sockets. Look into their eyes and you'll see masculine energy coming out. You can see that's a man. If you can't see it, it's because of your mind. and you've been totally brainwashed. It's like being brainwashed into a cult. You need to be rescued out of the cult mentality. Cults are all about brainwashing people. It's all in the mind. We become prisoners of our own mind when we believe things that just are not true, usually involving false idols, right? And sexuality, everything like that. They twist our perception of reality. So we need to be deprogrammed, okay? This is a deprogramming video, all right? Fake people, fake smiles, fake words coming out of their mouth, fake events happening. Everything on television is fake. Ike and the Ikeettes. We got Ike and the Ikeettes here. Eisenhower. Mammy. Her name's Mammy, all right? What else do you need to know? Mammy Dowd. That's in one of those families, isn't it? Look at that. Come on. Now, either these presidents are picking the ugliest women in the world. No one's going to choose these women as their spouse. It's just not going to happen, especially someone who's, successful like a president would be. But look at how feminine this guy is. Ike and the Ikeettes. Look at that little femboy. He's got that Brad Pitt look going on, huh? Little pretty boy. Definitely not pretty. Who's prettier? Ike or Ikeette? Wow, that's just nasty. And before Ike and the Ikeettes was True Man. We got True Man. Best Truman was a true man. Look at those trannies on the left, trannies on the right. I think that's one of his daughters or something, Generational. It's a family thing, man. It's a family tradition. And there he is in his Freemason regalia. Some kind of, look at that. That's basically the Muslim symbology. The crescent moon, the sword, the star. Freemasons, man. Freemasons are part of the Illuminati. Look at that as a young boy. That's not passable as a man. Hanging out with the royal family. Their real family. They're all related. It's the Illuminati bloodlines, man. It's the bloodlines. And their practices involve being deceptively transgendered. Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt. Again, either the ugliest woman in the world or a man. Look at that dude, man. What kind of... Only men have facial expressions like that, like, hey, man, what's up, unless she's, like, got some kind of disease or something, but clearly a male face. I mean, I'm not talking about people listening, I got these women commenting, oh, I have a big hand and I'm not a tranny. Well, I'm not talking about you, all right? Women come in all shapes and sizes. I'm talking about these people in my video, and these people are trannies, all right? I'm not saying you're a tranny. Look at it. Who's on the right there? Look at that little girly boy, man. Got that Bill Clinton look going on. Look at this. Look at how feminine he is, man. And look at on the left, man. Whoa. Look at that, man. Come on. Why are the presidents so feminine? Why are the presidents so feminine? Well, it's because they are feminine. They're women. It's a trans fest. They're just gender bent. It's just a big joke to them, man. They hate us. They're evil. Their mission in life is to lie. Every single word out of their mouth. They'll mix in a bit of truth, but only to emphasize the lie. Look at that. And last but not least, Herbert Hoover's wife's name was Lou Henry Hoover. Lou Henry. 2 male names. I mean, if one wasn't enough, they give you 2 male names, and it's just a man. That's just a man, okay? If you didn't believe anything I said, just look at this one, all right? Maybe that's the first one I should have showed you. Just, there's going to be people that are just hopeless. You just can't help them, sorry to say, but that's a man. And I'll give you a bit of time to see that that's a woman. And it took me a while. That's why I haven't focused on the men yet, because I didn't have the conviction. I do now, all right? But I know the audience probably doesn't yet, so I'm going to ease into the talking about the men. All right, look at this guy. I mean, there's just no way around it. I mean, who was this guy? This person, we'll have to look at this person more. Maybe they died and became just a regular guy again, kind of like Diana. I think we got to look into that more, right? People who supposedly died, but really they probably just remained alive and just switched genders and took on a different disguise. That is a man, no doubt about it. And as the election draws nearer, which Illuminati tranny will be in the White House next year? So really we have a 20% chance between Trump, Clinton, Pence, Kaine, and Obama. And you can see they're all a bunch of Illuminati trannies. They're all a bunch of secret trannies. So it doesn't really matter who you get. But these, the thing is, these principalities and powers, they don't always get along. So there may be some genuine animosity in competition between them, all right? I've heard kind of people who have studied these demonic entities a lot more than I have. They have said that, just like the mafia and gangs and stuff, right? They kill each other off all the time. They're always fighting against each other. You know, the mafia is not fighting against regular people. They're fighting against each other. Melania is a tranny. No woman looks like, look at it. I mean, come on, give me a break. Demonically possessed transgendered entity. She's got that alien look going on, right? And few people, no one's really talking about the fact that Malaya Obama is a tranny. Look at it, that's a young teenage boy. All right, look at the face. It's all in the face. They got that. She's already a horse-faced tranny, okay? And I'm not trying to be rude, but you cannot hurt these people's feelings. They're not human. Look at that boy. No makeup, just getting off a plane.
Americans pay top dollar for Michelle's wardrobe, travel expenses, security detail, and every imaginable perk as Americans finance Michelle's,
Michael and I also want to...
that is, Michael's ongoing deception along with his partner, Barack, and their adopted children. My, what big biceps Conan has. Oh no, that's not Conan, that's Serena Williams. What is a tennis player who is supposed to be a woman doing with biceps like those? Oh, he is smashing one of the strongest and most expensive tennis rackets on the planet into pieces, as though it was just a little stick. Not only does Serena have the strength of a man, but he also has some very serious anger issues as well. Serena Williams has the waist of a man. Does anyone in America remember what a man looks like anymore? Perhaps this next image will help. This is Serena Williams without the facially distorting smile, and he most certainly has the face of a man. Pink nail polish on those fingernails and some plucked eyebrows cannot hide that man face. Serena Williams has the neck of a man. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever seen a neck like that on a woman? And remember, Serena is not a bodybuilder. He is a tennis player. Serena Williams has the shoulders of a man. Serena Williams has the arms of a man. Serena Williams has breasts that have been formed by hormone replacement therapy, and those breasts are located on the upper torso of a man who likes to present himself and who prefers to dress up as a woman. Serena Williams has the lower torso of a man. Nice man legs, Serena. Nice job balancing on those stilettos as well. Serena Williams has a lower torso that is heavier than his upper torso because of fat deposits that are a direct result of hormone replacement therapy. Serena Williams is not Little Red Riding Hood. He has the bone structure and overall body proportions of a man. Serena Williams is, in fact, a man who likes to deceive people into believing that he is a woman by distracting people with his big facially distorting smile, through flamboyant gestures and behavior, by deliberately raising his voice, by wearing makeup, by wearing women's clothing, and by surgically altering his male genitalia. Apparently, that whole gender deception thing did not work out well for him at all. Now, some people will argue that physical differences between white people and black people are responsible for the different waist indent points that are shown in this photo. And so, let's see if that is a credible argument. Here is a photo of a black woman. Notice the waist indent point is located above the navel. Once again, a photo of a black woman. Notice the waist indent point is most certainly located above the navel. In this photo, it is easy to see that no amount of muscle can change one of the most basic features of a healthy woman, the feature that in fact gives a healthy woman her natural hourglass shape, and that is the indent point that is located above the navel. And so, the argument that Serena's waist indent point is lower because of Serena's black ancestry has no basis whatsoever in reality. Serena's waist indent point is located below his navel at the top of his hip bone because Serena was born a male and in fact has been physically formed by male DNA that can be found in each and every cell of his body. He can straighten and color his hair, put makeup on his face, and wear designer skirts and bras. But Serena Williams can't hide the fact that under all those false externals is the DNA of a man. This illustration reveals the typical shoulder width of a person with male DNA. The shoulders are 3 heads wide and the overall height is 8 heads tall. 1 head taller than a woman. Thanks for modeling the natural male proportions, Serena. Serena really is a model of male proportions. And that includes skull proportions. If you like, you can compare the bulge in Serena's eyebrow to the typical eyebrow bulge in the African male skull. Of course, you can then compare it to the much flatter eyebrow that is found in the typical African female skull. You will find, if you do so, that Serena has the bulge that is typically found in the African male skull. Find a photo of Serena next to an actual woman and the difference in eyebrow bulge is easy to spot. Nice hairdo, Serena. And that person with the bulging eyebrows on the left is Serena's older brother, whose name is Venus. Brother? Yes, brother. Hormone replacement therapy can cause breasts to form on a man and can even cause fat deposits on the upper thighs. But no amount of hormone replacement therapy can flatten Venus's eyebrows or move Venus's waist indent point above the navel, the place where it is located on all women. But that is most definitely the waist of a man, and for those who forgot, this is what the waist of a healthy black man with male DNA looks like. This is what the waist of a healthy black woman with female DNA looks like. And this is Venus Williams, who most certainly does not have female DNA. Nice earrings, Venus. These two brothers, a term that also means boys, took the tennis world by storm and deliberately used their male advantage against women in order to win at a woman's sport. Well done, Williams brothers. Perhaps someone should have told them when they were growing up not to pick on girls. But, in fact, they were told repeatedly the exact opposite.
Is it fair for a man who has arms like that to compete in a women's tennis event against a woman who has arms that are only half the size? Remember, it is a woman's sport that we are talking about here. We are not talking about competing in a transgender tournament. Thanks to their father, Richard Williams, the missing part of their story has now been publicly revealed. Before the two boys were born, Mr. Williams carefully wrote down a plan that was 78 pages long. In his plan, he carefully plotted out how he was going to get out of the ghetto and become rich. He knew that his plan would be a real game changer. Out of greed, he would forever change the face of women's tennis by putting the face of a man there instead.
Born in Compton, California, one of Los Angeles' poorest suburbs, we learned that it was their father, Richard, who started them playing tennis before they were 5. He saw sport as their ticket out of the ghetto.
I had watched the tennis match on TV, and I really didn't see the match. When the match was over with, and they was giving this young lady $40,000 because she won the tournament. And I figured since I worked for $52,000 all year, and this girl make $40,000 in 4 days, I knew I was in the wrong business.
But here is the part of his plan that he kept hidden, until now that is, Richard adopted 2 boys. He immediately abused those boys by giving them girls' names and by passing them off as girls. he kept their true gender carefully hidden. He homeschooled them, and through the use of brainwashing techniques, drilled the game of tennis into them every day. Just before they reached puberty, Mr. Williams had the boys surgically mutilated so that all traces of their male genitalia would be forever hidden. He then put the boys on hormone replacement therapy so that they would grow breasts and so that they would not grow any facial hair. Deep down inside, he knew full well that he was a boy. And so, in choosing to go along with his father's plan, Serena chose to be a deceiver. In fact, Serena consciously chose to deceive the black community and the entire world in exchange for money. Serena has now won more than $50 million in prize money and is the only tennis player playing against women in women's tennis ever to do so. And so now Serena has received his reward by giving a man an unfair advantage over all the female athletes who had trained all their lives to participate in a fair competition. And the competitors with female DNA were no match for Venus either. Venus and Serena stole the gold medal in doubles at 3 separate Olympics. Serena stole gold in the singles competition in 2012. And so, why is it important that why is it so important that Michael Obama be included in this video? Birds of a feather flock together. Serena, Venus, and Michael are all very much aware of the transformations they have each undergone. And together, they are knowingly presenting the black community with 2 very powerful role models, one in politics and one in sports. Michelle Obama and Serena Williams have been presented to the black community as role models of very powerful black women. To make matters worse, their physical form has been presented to the black community as a physical form that other women, especially black women, should strive to imitate. While Michael has presented himself as a model of social status and power for black women, Serena has presented himself as a powerful and successful role model for black women. Because Michelle and Serena are both men, they cannot possibly be role models for women. It is one thing for them to embrace the transsexual lifestyle, but it is quite another for them to be presenting themselves as women while knowing full well that they are intentionally deceiving others in doing so.
And I know one of the most common reasons that people experience cognitive dissonance when we're trying to discuss these topics and the world we live in is because they've presented so many of them as pregnant to us. So they say, but they were pregnant. It's impossible. Men can't get pregnant. So I'm not going to go into conspiracy theory here at all. I just want to take a few minutes and show you what the celebrities say in their own words about the inordinate amount of them who are not carrying their own children. They say openly in their articles that, oh, a surrogate carried my baby, or they openly go on the circuit about their in vitro fertilization, admitting that these children were created in a laboratory, not the natural man and woman relations. So this is in their own words. I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, and I'm not making assumptions. I'm just going to show you the inordinate amount of celebrities who openly say their children were created in laboratories and that they did not even carry them in their own bodies. And before I start that list, I just want to show you a picture like this. This is another one of those magazine covers. This is Elon Musk's mother. Take a look at that face if you know what I'm saying. And I wanted to go into Elon Musk's family line and who his grandfather was and his lead in the movement of technocracy long before Elon Musk was ever born. His grandparents were part of this, what they believe, technocracy, that the world would be ruled by by the leaders in technology. And I wanted to get into all of that, but I'm just not going to have time in this video. That'll be for another day. But suffice it to say that Elon Musk was created for what he's doing. But my point for right here is she's 63 here. This is obviously not her pregnant belly, although this is a very real cover of a magazine they put out. In the article, it goes on to say, Mrs. Musk went on to reveal to Inside Edition, I'm 63. I'm not going to be pregnant. She admitted to posing nude, but said that the final image was altered. They did have a model who was 9 months pregnant and used her belly and put it on me, she added. So that she admitted that that was a photoshopped image. And then, of course, the moon bump is old news that everybody knows. It's companies. There are companies. They produce these. The very fact that there's a market for these is, that it would be worth it, just supply and demand economically, to create a company that produces devices that help women fake pregnancy, that there would be such a demand for that they could make money by having a manufacturing plant and a sales department and all. It's just, that should tell you something. They sell them in packs so that you can fake your pregnancy throughout the whole thing. And you've noticed that when a lot of these celebrities get pregnant, they never have any swelling, they never gain any weight. They're just bone thin, except for the baby bump right there. I don't even know how baby could get out of those hips right there, but anyway, if you're a woman and you've been pregnant, when I was pregnant, oh my gosh, everything swelled. My face swelled, my fingers swelled, my hands swelled, my ankles swelled, everything my swelling had swelling, but not celebrities. They're just like bone thin model bodies and just a bump. Not all of them, but that's very common to see that. So there's that. Now let's get on to the list of the stars that I wanted to show you, who openly admit that they didn't carry their own children. They had another human carry their children in their bodies for them, which are called gestational surrogates. And now don't forget, obviously, every single person who used a surrogate is telling you that the children were conceived in a laboratory, because obviously they're not conceiving children naturally in their bodies and then removing them and putting them in another human. It's a given that anybody on this list who used a surrogate is admitting that those children were created in the laboratories. Sarah Jessica Parker says that her twins were carried by a surrogate. She did not carry them. And in Vogue magazine, she talks about meeting them for the first time in the hospital room. Nicole Kidman says that her second child with Keith Urban was not carried by them. A surrogate carried that for them. And she also had multiple adoptions. And I will talk about these multiple adoptions, and I will talk about the twinning, like with Sarah Jessica Parker, here in just a minute. Obviously, Neil Patrick Harris and David Burtka's children were grown in a surrogate. And likewise, obviously, Elton John and David Furnish's children were also carried in the womb of another human. Elizabeth Banks says that both of her children were grown and gestated in a surrogate who carried them at different times. These were born in 2 different years, so she had 2 different children carried by a gestational surrogate. Juliana and Bill Rancic, their child was carried by another person. Both of Jimmy Fallon's children were not carried by his wife, but were carried by surrogates, again in different years, not at the same time. So 2 children, both carried by surrogates. Jimmy Fallon. Tyra Banks did not carry her son in her body. A surrogate carried her son. Dennis Quaid's twins were carried by a surrogate. Angela Bassett did not carry her twins in her body. They were grown in a surrogate. George Lucas of Star Wars, his daughter was carried by a surrogate. Matt and publicist Simon Halls have 3 sons that were all grown in surrogates. 3 of Robert De Niro's children were carried by surrogates. And Lucy Liu had another human carry her child as well. She says, it just seemed like the right option for me because I was working and didn't know when I was going to be able to stop. And this is the lead singer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So This is supermodel Heather Christie supposedly carrying his child. Let's just take a look at some more pictures of them. There she is, and again with a little less makeup, and again, that is Heather Christie. Just saying. And there again after she had the baby. But it must be true, right? Because all of the magazine photographers made a point to get pictures of her and broadcast them to us throughout her pregnancy. Probably also just a coincidence that we see this whole doppelganger thing. It's the big running joke, right? How the drummer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers is like the twin of Will Ferrell, Chad Smith and Will Ferrell. Just one of those doppelganger phenomenons, another big coincidence. And here's just a few of the elitists who say they did carry their babies, but those embryos were created in the lab. Chrissy Teigen, Courtney Cox, Brooke Shields, Celine Dion, which you know has recently become infamous for her androgynous, what does she call it, gender neutral clothing line for babies that says New World Order or New World and all that all over the clothing, and has skulls and death cult stuff all over the baby's clothing. I'm not going to grab a clip of that. Most of you have seen it, but if not, here's a zillion videos on it. You can see it says New Order right on the clothing. It has the skulls and everything. The kids in the commercial have the Illuminati eye on their hand. It's really disturbing. The commercial's very disturbing. It's not a children's happy, fun Toys R Us commercial. It's dark. And here's a perfect example of how they're really rubbing our nose in it. They're yucking it up over us. This is a men's fashion show in London. And yeah, they made all the men wear these pregnant bellies.
Beyonce's glorious baby bump. A middle finger to conspiracy theorists and political rallying cry. Well, there's a lot going on there in that little headline, isn't there? First of all, a middle finger to conspiracy theorists. I was offended by that. She hurt my feelings, and I feel like I need to go to a safe place, a safe zone. I mean, we can just see the chaos brewing and then the order that will come out of that chaos, which will be a one world order, perhaps, with some special help from our fake alien friends. This conspiracy theory, what they're talking about is actually about 6 years ago when she had her first kid, or somebody had the first kid for her. She got busted with a fake pregnant bump. Let's check it out. There it is. Like, see how she bends over like she's tying her shoelaces, right? You don't do that when you're pregnant, man. Keep your back straight. Otherwise, you're going to smash the baby all up. You're going to squish the baby. The baby just got squished. Look at that. She just squished the baby. And you can see the foam starting to pop out of her dress there, you know, starting to pop out. Boom. She just, oh man, totally busted. So freeze it there. You can see the foam is getting all bunched up and sticking out like that. And pregnant women don't bend over like that. And if it was a real belly, it wouldn't get all squished up like that, you know. She would have just killed the baby. Women would sit down, keeping their back straight and kind of easing their butt down first. They're not going to bend over like they're tying their shoelaces. And this was like 6 years ago, and everybody was talking about it back then. Everybody busted her for having a fake pregnant belly. And now here she goes again. And this is a very strange photo. So you got the, first of all, in the back, that's a wreath, actually. A wreath, like a Christmas wreath, which is actually an Ouroboros, like that snake thing, kind of the thing that goes around the UN flag. It's like a snake, a serpent. It's the serpent that controls the world. That's what that represents. The Ouroboros. It's an old Freemason Egyptian thing, you know, because she's basically trying to be like Isis, right? The goddess Isis. She's got this Mother Mary thing going on. Weirdness, you know. And twins, of course, right? We saw that just recently with George Clooney, and all these celebrities have twins, man. It's because you're more likely to have twins when it's an IVF baby in the lab, in vitro fertilization. They put a couple of eggs in there because they, just in case one doesn't hatch, and then they both end up hatching. And I think these celebrities, they want twins because then you can do all kinds of gender swapping and genetic experimentation, and it's a breeding program.
So people are noticing, here's an article, what's with the twins explosion in Hollywood? Everyone assumes it's due to IVF. So, of course, Beyonce and Jay-Z had twins. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie had twins. Celine Dion, George Clooney and that had twins. And of course, we can't forget the face of the public royals, Kate Middleton, or now Prince William's wife, twins. Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher. Gwen Stefani. Ooh, it's a miracle baby at 46. You'll see that a lot too. Tons of celebrities having miracle babies at like 50 years old. Jennifer Lopez, twins. Julia Roberts, twins. Sarah Jessica Parker and Matthew Broderick, twins. Mariah Carey had twins. Brooke Shields had twins. Robert De Niro had twin sons through in vitro fertilization. Dennis Quaid had twins. Angela Bassett had twins. But you get the picture. While sperm counts are way down for the rest of us, the A-list elitists, they're like hatching them by the litter. And on top of that, they're adopting tons of children. Nicole Kidman's adopted a bunch of kids. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt adopted several children. Hugh Jackman and this person here, went through both IVF and ended up adopting children, 2 children they adopted.
These are what are available to the regular public. Again, we don't know what's available to these very wealthy people. But if you want to fake a pregnancy, look, you have 3 to 4 months, 5 to 6, 7 to 8. Just slap on a moon bump. They come in all shapes and sizes and colors. And you can, now you've seen photos of celebrities pregnant. That's just Photoshop. You can just pull it and stretch it out. But if you were out in public, you'd wear a moon bump. And they even do the belly button. It's pretty convincing, right? If you didn't know to look, you might be fooled by that. I mean, I was. I was fooled by that. I didn't know about any of this. Now here, this person is a man, and I only go by the size of her skull, because her skull is freaking huge. And she's not pregnant, but then she puts on her moon bump. It's even got that line in it. Could you tell? Could you tell, honestly? If you didn't know about transvestigations, could you tell that was a man wearing a moon bump? I could not. I would have thought it was real. You can't even see the side seam. Now look at this. If you read the caption, 17 best images about moon bumps products on Pinterest. That is not a woman getting a sonogram. They got the fake doctor. They got the fake husband. She's got a moon bump on. So you see the sonogram. It doesn't mean it's hers or his or whomever it is. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a video of someone else's sonogram. So you can't be fooled by these little Hollywood little things they do. You have to look at their bones. Always go by the bones. It's the best way to tell. And once you get a little bit better at spotting them, it's freaking easy to tell.
And there it is, the fake pregnancy bump. Fake pregnant bellies, man. That's right from the website of the Moon Bump Company. I'm sure there's other companies all over the world. Look, they're not expensive. A couple £100. She's probably got the deluxe super secret version. She must have got the cheap one before. You got to get one with like a back brace to keep you from bending over like that. And these are their clients, all these Illuminati media conglomerate companies, all these actresses, all these people in the media. Everything in the media is a lie. It doesn't matter which medium it is. If it's internet, radio, magazines, television, movies, entertainment, singing, music, client types, transgendered men, transsexuals.
Here's some hip pads. Cross-dressing hip pads. Look at that. They're made of silicone. They fit in your pantyhose. You'll see they wear these shiny, tight pantyhose. That's because they got to hold all these props up. What else might you want to fix? You know, men have those tiny, low-slung butts. You might want to pump it up a little bit, right? Kind of reminds me of that Kardashian chick. Can't remember her name. So I'm not saying she's had that. She may have had a fat transfer or a Brazilian butt lift. I am saying she's not a female. I'll get to her eventually. But you might get a butt pad. It's so ridiculous. Okay. Or you might get a butt and hip underwear. They're built right in. You just slap them right on. Now you got a butt and hips. This is a huge industry because there are a lot of trannies. We just didn't know. Especially in Hollywood. Okay, so here comes, what's next? This is a guy, right? And he just slapped a guy mannequin. You can see he's got that low slung butt. So, here, buy a butt. Put it in your pants. That's all you need. It's really not funny because the deception has been going on for a long time. But it is funny because it makes you feel better to be a real female. I don't have to wear no slap-on butts. Look at that. Get your little hip pads going. Plump up your butt. Ah, jeez. Alright, so we got the butts down pat. Now here's a dude, for sure, with butt and hip pads on. Well, that's quite a shocking difference. Now, the next slide's graphic, but it's a necessary addition to this video, so be prepared. It's not a real vagina. It's one you buy off the internet to put in your underwear so you can take your photos. Now, that's it. I didn't do a lot of research into this because it's kind of skeevy. But, so, could you have one made? Custom made? Sure. Could you get sex reversal surgery? Not reversal, what do they call that? You know, get your penis turned into a vagina? Absolutely. Could you keep your penis and just have your testicles cut off? Sure. It's all available. Those are some nasty looking underwear, but whatever. They come with the butt pads built right in. More butt pads. They're all made of silicone, so they're nice and squishy. I don't know if you could feel it if you grab somebody's butt, but I'm not really sure. This one's a little bit gross, too. It's crazy. Alright, so say you want to cover your penis and you don't want to tape it. You put this little fake vagina in your underwear. You put your penis down and cover it up with this fake vagina. Pretty gross. Alright, I don't want to say gross, whatever. That's a fake penis you can put in your underwear. So it looks like you have something when you're really a female. Isn't that interesting? Goes both ways. I actually saw a video where the man took out a whole unit of penis and testicles that he just wore in his underwear, but I couldn't find it and I didn't want to look anymore. Fake vagina for your underwear. Why would anybody want to look like that? Well, I guess if you were trying to fool people, you might want to flash your vagina. I was never tempted to do that, so I can't really speculate. Corset training. Whoa, very important, very important. Can't be fooled by skin. So if you wear a corset, which is like, I'm sure you know what a corset is. It's really tight, goes around your waist. It has these ribs in it to keep it a certain way. And it moves your organs around so that you get the female waist indent. But as you can see from the picture, it makes a huge difference. And it lasts for, I mean, I've never worn a corset or done corset training. I don't know how long it stays like that after you take it off. But it does stay for a while. It takes time for your organs to move back where they belong. So you can see it's a pretty shocking waist indent. Okay, she just wore a corset. That's all she did. Look at that one. That's amazing. That is amazing. Right? Look at the dent it made. Now, if you were a guy, you could certainly do the same thing. You have the exact same organs. You just squeeze them and they move around. Because there's no ribs there or bones there to stop it. It's just a corset. And it stays for a while after you take it off. Now look at this picture. Look at these trannies all with their corsets on. Why would they do that? I have never, well, I shouldn't say never. I can't remember. Maybe I wore one for my husband, but I doubt it. It doesn't look comfortable. Why would they do that? Because they're not women. That's why. They're not women. They're wearing their corsets to give themselves the appearance of a woman. But they're not women. They're just posers.
Some of you will ask about the voices of these elite transgenders and why they are feminine sounding. Have you ever really considered the idea that what you are hearing is just a prepubescent male voice all grown up without a puberty? No? I will show you a clip of what is possible with surgery. Notice how it is a science in and of its own, but remember that if someone has been castrated in prepubescence, they will maintain the pitch of their prepubescent voice. The elite know exactly how this works.
Rainbow Passage. When the sunlight strikes raindrops in the air, they act as a prism and form a rainbow. The rainbow is a division of white light into many beautiful colors. These take the shape of a long round arch, with its path high above, and its two ends apparently beyond the horizon.
Rainbow Passage. When the sunlight strikes raindrops in the air, they act as a prism and form a rainbow. The rainbow is a division of white light into many beautiful colors. These take the shape of a long arch, with its path high above, and its two ends apparently beyond the horizon. There is, according to legend, a boiling pot of gold at one end. People look, but no one ever finds it. When a man looks for something beyond his reach, his friends say he's looking for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Please take a second look at these people with new eyes. Old Don here, Donatella Versace, this is your leader? I just can't believe that people can't see when they look at Donatella Versace. Not only can they not see, but they want to emulate this. Ooh, it's Versace. I'm so trendy. I'm so cool. Really? This is what you want to emulate? This is it? You want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to dress up in everything she produces? What she creates? We have to realize that these people are creating this stuff and broadcasting it to us so that we are transformed into their image. And the whole time they're convincing these mind-controlled slaves of theirs that they're the edgy, you're trendy, oh, you are so rebellious because look how you're pushing the boundaries. And it's like they're the most mind-controlled, rank-and-file slaves of the mainstream. The whole time they're like, oh, I'm so rebellious, I'm trans. Honey, you aren't rebellious. You can't even think for yourself. You're a carbon copy of the people who designed you. You're doing exactly what the cabal wants you to do. You're wearing exactly what the cabal wants you to do. And now even self-mutilating and cutting off genitalia and all sorts of stuff just to emulate your creators, your puppet masters, these people, the ruling class.
But forget skinny jeans. Fashion designers are now pushing female clothing as the next men's fashion trend. For their recent catwalk show, Undercover had these skeletal soy boys parading around in maxi skirts. This fashion designer is portraying men as pigs and dogs. Not only are we under chemical assault from plastic products and foods that lower testosterone, we're mass unwitting participants in a huge social engineering experiment based around vilifying masculinity and demoralizing men.
And it's especially hard to believe that our sex symbols that men have lusted after for generations could be men. I mean, men especially aren't going to want to admit that Katharine Hepburn could be a man, that they might have been tricked into being attracted to a man. Again, with the MK Ultra trauma-based mind control. It's traumatic for a God-fearing heterosexual man to admit that he might have been tricked into lusting after another man. But even if you can't admit that, say, Katharine Hepburn, for example, could have possibly been a cross-dressing male or transvestite or transgender, you have to admit that they did at least use her in transgender films. In the 1935 film Sylvia Scarlett, Katharine Hepburn plays a transvestite man. In the film, she cuts all of her hair off. She decides she's going to be a man and that It's a transgender movie. Look it up and watch it. I'm not making this up. And they introduced the first woman kissing woman lesbian act. This is still back in black and white movies when they were introducing this agenda. So it was long before we saw Madonna stick her tongue down Britney Spears' throat on stage at the music awards, or Christina Aguilera and Madonna making out in their underwear at the music awards. They started on the parents and the parents' parents decades and decades ago, a full generation or two ago. They started slowly normalizing this so that there wouldn't be an uproar when we got to this point where we are now, the externalization of the hierarchy.
If you made it this far, I hope you are okay. That feeling of every nerve from the top of your neck to the bottom of your spine electrified, buzzing, it's the truth. And the truth is something we are conditioned to understand as something more frightening than fiction. But what is truly frightening? That for an entire lifetime you have spent thousands of hours in front of a television screen, absorbing the blatant glorification of transgenderism, and probably spent your most important developmental years preferentially conditioning your brain while it is most malleable to think that this is normal. You have been sold a false paradigm, and some of you are saying, "But John, I never grew up with TV. I was not being subverted by these elite transgenders." Do you remember how I defined modeling in terms of actual therapy? If all of the people around you behave positively to a certain stimulus, you will subliminally adapt that same ideal. Do you get it? We keep each other in this same paradigm just by the very power of the majority believing in the paradigm.
He's a man, spelled M, a child, and a real manly man. He's a man, he's a man. He's a Freemason man. He's a man. He's a trans man. He's a trans